long time ago, in a YouTube world full of keyboard warriors, many monsters and trolls lurked in the chat rooms. They thrived on arguments amongst each other until one day, a heroine rose from the ashes. She was made from the tears of beta bitches and the sweat of alpha male gym guys. Throughout the centuries, this keyboard warrior princess showed up in many forms. She slayed many demons along the way. By the light of the moon, she led the simp army into battle. Wielding her sword, she fought through the dark forests. With each new era, the monsters evolved. The keyboard warrior princess grew stronger, with new skills to bring them down. The world around her advanced, but so did she. Her heroism became known to society as technology advanced, and with each new generation, she had to learn how to blend in to keep her identity hidden. Now known as the Raging Tomato, this keyboard warrior princess fights for justice in every debate. She fights for freedom, for moderator bias, and she fights for your ability to battle on an open panel for your beliefs. She protects the simp troopers from destruction. She fights to create peace among troll wars. She storms the battle zones without hesitation and leaves the battleground with her pockets full of souls. Are you ready to battle your fellow trolls? Are you ready for a moderator to give you time to talk? Are you ready for justice, peace, and a fair fight? Tune in every Monday night to watch your friends duke out their issues, or join the open panel so that you can fight the good fight and find resolution with your peers.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am the Raging Tomato here, bringing back to you live another round of Moderator Monday. This evening, we are hosting Secularism versus Christianity. And the question is, can we ground morality without God? From my left to my far right, I've got Flow State here, my brother from another mother and father. He is a regular panelist here on the show. We love him to pieces. Shout out to Flow State. Godless Engineer, a newbie to this panel. I'm glad to have you and bring in some more of the secular level of things so we can kind of balance this show out a little bit. Very glad to have you. Also, David Patrick Henry, shout out to you, another newbie to the panel. Maybe we can grab some more ortho bros and see how many more we can gather. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, we have Jimbob, the great impersonator of many characters, and also not a new person to this screen. Glad to have all of you, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining. I do have one rule that we stay on topic. We not venture out into personal matters or anything of that sort. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Wrenches, please do keep the chat clean. This will be about a 2-hour debate. We'll go from now until 11:15. We will begin with our closing statements. After that, please stick around. We'll do questions from the Superchats, anything that's $20 or more. I may consider other things less if we have time, but $20 or more for sure are guaranteed to get asked. We will not host a hot seat this evening. There are enough strong voices on this panel. There's no room for any more. However, I will go into open panel after we're all done with reading super chats and closing statements. The panelists are certainly welcome to stick around and hang out for open panel, but they are not obligated to. That is only up to them. There are multiple people dual streaming this evening, so please be sure to get out to each of the gentlemen's shows, like, subscribe, share, do your job as a viewer and chatter and loyal supporter of all of us. We're here for you. Again, the prompt is, can we ground morality without God? Gentlemen, are there any final questions before we get started? All right, let's start left to right. Taylor, if you want to kick off with your opening statement.
Sure. Thanks for having me on again, and salute to the chat. I definitely believe that you can ground morality without religion, without God, and I think I can make this debate short by just pointing out that we have done it throughout all of human history. If you look back throughout time, you can see that every society has had a set of morals, regardless of their religion in that culture.
Thank you. Godless Engineer, to you.
All right. I hope y'all don't mind, but I wrote something up that probably will take about 3 minutes to get through. So morality is better grounded without God than with God. As far back as Aristotle, we have recognized that human beings are inherently social. With the advent of modern science, we have discovered that we are not the only social species on this planet. Sociologist Emil Durkheim has argued that morality reflects the collective consciousness of a society, which binds individuals together. Morality is an essential attribute of social species and their survival. This social cohesion allows them to survive and thrive in severe adversity. So we see an evolutionary advantage in developing moral foundations immediately. This shows we don't need a God to develop morals because morality is inherently developed. After all, we are a social species, like I've already stated. The complex nature of morality has spawned many different ways of reaching moral conclusions. I take a humanistic approach, valuing my fellow man's health, well-being, and freedom above any divine considerations. This is the best approach because morality concerns human behavior and interaction. A humanistic and secular approach to morality has the advantage of being flexible enough to change as our societies progress and mature. This is in stark contrast to a religiously grounded moral foundation in that the commands are rigid and quickly become outdated with the progression of society. Secular ethics also focuses on universal human rights regardless of religion, gender, or sexuality. A religiously grounded moral framework promotes one religion above all others and focuses on appeasing whatever the spokespersons for that religion deem what their deity wants. Secular ethics promotes holding people accountable for their actions and judging people by real-world consequences of their actions. On the other hand, religion adheres to an interpretation of ancient texts that only focuses on appeasing whatever deity the text described. That deity could or could not have the best interest of human beings in mind. In the case of the Christian God, that is not the case. Grounding morality in the Christian faith causes people to justify atrocities because God commands his chosen people to commit those atrocities. Using the Bible, you can justify rape, racism, genocide, sexual slavery, chattel slavery, and many other horrible actions that a secular form of morality could quickly identify as abhorrent practices. While there may be varied ways of developing a moral foundation using a secular moral foundation, using Kant, Mill, Bentham, Aristotle, or any other kind of secular method. Secular moral foundations do not bend to the whims of celestial deities. These deities are not concerned with how people treat each other. They are only concerned with what personally pleases them. And so that is why I feel that morality is better grounded without God.
Thank you. David, to you.
So the premise of tonight's debate is a grounding for morality without God. So our opponents this evening are on the affirmative side of this position, and they're going to make an objective case, which is going to be difficult based on their starting premises. And so what does grounding mean? Grounding means providing universality in regard to the application of whether it be epistemology, knowledge, and truth, in this case, morality, the necessity for it, and the authority of it. And so morality must come from something that's unchanging and transcends the material world itself, given it's, if they have evolutionary presuppositions, it's ever changing. And that would also include the perceived facts and truths that we derive from inductive empirical methods. So a non-theistic moral framework, if they're coming at it from a naturalistic perspective, I appreciate my opponent referencing Kant, because he just described that as a secular foundation for morality when Kant's deontological argument was actually his apologetic for the existence of God. So a little bit ironic there. But their non-theistic approach to grounding morality is going to have a few difficulties this evening. One is going to be avoiding relativism. So how exactly they ground something outside of their own subjective preferences is going to be difficult, because if they appeal to their own subjective preferences, we're already going to see that they're going to concede the debate, because therefore, if it's just based on their subjective preferences, I have my own subjective preferences, and then essentially it's a draw. But given the rules of debate and logical premises, they would actually lose the debate. So relativism, subjectivity, and establishing a sort of moral obligation. So if they appeal to something like empathy, that's going to be very difficult to actually make a affirmative argument for why it is morally obligated for people to act in certain ways. And so our opponent this evening has already failed to understand the is-ought, what's often referred to as the Hume's guillotine, and that you can use empiricism or inductive methods and describe a lot of ises, but they're going to have a very difficult time getting to the point where they can describe an ought. And so they only have a few ways to go. They can talk about morality being socially constructed, which is going to then fall into relativism and subjectivity, which would then concede the point of grounding something, which again refers to universality and necessity. Or they can go a utilitarian route, which would probably be their best approach. However, utilitarianism is going to be subject to the same problems. We're going to see the ambiguity of happiness. So if they're going to root morality in the happiness of the greatest number, how do we exactly define happiness? How do we quantify happiness, especially if they're using an inductive empirical method? And how are they going to deal with various examples in which a minority group has a particular opinion, and if they were to wipe them out, put them in slavery, or persecute them, that it may benefit the majority? Clearly, that would be an immoral act, even, I assume, based on their own standards. So there's going to be a lot of problems if they go the evolutionary approach, because obviously that is going to be dubious due to the ever-changing nature of material reality. Utilitarian approach is going to be subject to the same relativistic subjective problems, and therefore morality can only be grounded in the existence of God, because one, it has to be transcendent, and a second, it has to be absolute. So God's goodness is rooted in his nature, which we understand. Jimbob and I are both Orthodox Christians, and so it has to do with an engagement with his energies. And that leads to the establishment of a moral objectivity. So I assume their rhetorical points tonight is going to try to highlight the dubious, what they perceive as the dubious nature between some of the perceived atrocities on their end in the Old Testament versus the New Testament, which we would already say that we believe in a progressive revelation in which the first covenant is superseded by the second covenant of Jesus Christ. And Jimbob, I'm sure, will talk a little bit more about how God is clarifying a moral law due to the fall. So if we talk about polygamy, for example, Adam and Eve as the ideal standard, creation falls, and we have various saints, even within the church. You could look at David or Solomon having multiple wives. The reason why this isn't problematic at a moral standpoint is because revelation is progressively being revealed. And so God is not dealing with the ideal. He is dealing with a cultural context in which the people found themselves in a fallen world. And so with God, we have an unchanging standard. We have a divine judgment. And if they appeal to sort of empathy or the heart, obviously we would agree with the idea of the human conscience. God has actually written the moral law on the human heart, reference Romans 2:14-15. And human dignity is going to be a real problem if they approach it from a naturalistic perspective on how exactly they're going to empirically ground the dignity of humanity. Now, from us as Orthodox Christians, we believe in theos, and so the whole purpose of salvation is to become more like Christ, which is fulfilling the telos of human creation itself. So the eternal, unchanging nature of morality in God, the transcendence of culture and subjectivity, if morality is rooted in God, and the authoritative and inherently goodness of God is going to be one of the reasons why morality actually cannot be grounded in a philosophical perspective without God.
Thank you. Can you breathe now? That was a lot. That was a lot. No shame there. Jimbob, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Okay, so morality refers to how we categorize human action, maybe thought, as either good or evil. Morality doesn't refer to how useful an action or a thought is. Notice that. Now, tonight we'll probably get a lot of usefulness, a lot of pragmatism, a lot of utilitarianism from our opponents, but that doesn't tell us what direction we should take this, right? What is the goal ultimately? Because morality refers to the prescribed behavior of beings, it's logical to assume the standard for a moral behavior is also a being. We do not model our behaviors after inanimate objects, and most of us, at least for now, don't model our behavior after animals in nature. The question tonight is whether or not the secular view, our opponents, can ground morality. The question is not whether or not the atheist is disgusted by certain things biblically or extra biblically. What you will likely hear from our opponents tonight is a list of complaints regarding human behavior, both past and present, including biblical events or current policies. In the same breath, we'll likely hear that morality is completely subjective. And as my opponent said tonight in his opener, the secular view, their moral standard isn't at the whims of a deity, but rather the whims of the trends of the times, which means any given time, any given era, any given behavior going to point to, it was the trend of the times. How could it possibly be immoral from that system? It can't be. You can't use the present day cultural narrative of what's good, what's bad, based on arbitrary cultural references and let's say conventions, and use that standard to go back into time. They probably will do this biblically and judge the past, because by their own standards, they're equal. They're on par. They're the same thing. Now, the question is, why is X immoral? So notice tonight, whatever they say is immoral, no matter how aggressive, how emotional it is, how graphic it is. Notice that the question isn't whether or not they think it's gross or think it's bad. The question is, why ultimately is it wrong? Not, I don't like it, like I don't like black licorice. Why is it actually wrong regardless of your preferences? Now, keep in mind, it's actually likely today that my opponents don't even agree on their moral standards, right? One might take a different approach on the current social issues, for instance, than the other. Well, who gets to win in that argument? Secularism versus secularism. I suppose we'll probably hear some secularism versus secularism tonight. With that said, the important issue here is grounding morality. What is it ultimately grounded in? If it's completely subjective and completely made up based on the whims of the times, the trends, what's popular demand, majority rules, etc., the moral statement, the moral position could change. Something could be immoral last year and be completely moral this year based on that standard. So with that, I would love to hear from my opponents presenting an objective standard for morality tonight.
Thank you, gentlemen. And before I open the floor, I just want to send a quick shout out and an update for everybody. Everybody is plugged in and dual streaming off of here, so I will see your super chats and so on and so forth. I will display them below the screen as they are debating. And again, anything 20 and up, we will refer to as questions later going forward. The floor is open, gentlemen. Any takers? I could prompt it.
Well, I think they have an affirmative stance, so I think they should lay out their argument first.
Okay.
Have something to debate.
Well, my argument would be that using Jimbob's definition of morals or morality, which is basically the dictionary one, grounding moral systems did exist before Orthodox Christianity. Correct? Do you agree with that?
What's that? Did morals exist before
Orthodox Christianity?
Our paradigm doesn't have a before Orthodox Christianity, so I'm not sure. Your position right now is to lay out. Let's say Orthodox Christianity just never existed. It never came up in the human chronology. You have to present your argument for what is morality and how is it grounded.
I'm using your definition of morality, which was, if I recall, relating to principles of right and wrong behavior. So I think that we can look at, say, ancient Japan, and they had a system of morality. We can look all over the world, and there were ancient systems of morality before and around any Judeo-Christian influence.
Well, even if Japan had a moral system, how is that the objective standard? Because we can all agree that all the different cultural context of history had different moral standards, but the point is, can it ultimately be grounded, which is calling into universality? So what is the universal moral standard?
No, I don't know about flow state, but I'm definitely not saying that we have to have an absolute objective like moral foundation in order to ground morality.
Well, that's not grounding then, philosophically speaking.
Grounding,
I mean, it's still grounding,
about your
even if
personal
you don't
preference.
want to admit that it's grounding.
Yeah.
It's still grounding it. So
What is it
No, it's
ground?
not.
Wait, what if
What's it
it's
grounded
grounded,
in?
but the ground can change, right?
yeah. So what? I mean,
so it's
y'all's
not
ground
grounded.
changed.
So that's relativism.
Y'all
Yeah,
aren't
that's
grounding.
I have my own
Under that
personal
definition,
preferences.
you're not grounding your morality either. Christianity's
Do you
morality has
concede then?
changed.
You concede the
You
debate,
just
then it's not
conceded the
grounded?
debate?
No.
Either-
I'm saying
either, that
by
means
your
also, right?
definition. No, by your definition, you're not grounding it. I'm saying that I'm grounding it. I'm just saying that by the definition that you're laying out, you're not even grounding it either. So it kind of makes
How?
it pointless. Your
How are
entire
we not grounding it by appealing to a
well,
transcendent
okay. So
authoritative
you're
power
saying
that's
that
outside cultural
because
context?
right, you're saying that because my moral grounding changes with society and with our understanding of social situations, then that means that it's not grounded. Y'all's social situations have also changed, and Christian morals have changed over time. So it seems like
So
y'all are
ours is
just
grounded
as
too?
grounded as we are.
Wait, so we're grounded and you're grounded?
So we're equally grounded.
I'm
then,
saying
based on your own
that y'all's
argumentation.
distinction between the grounding
You just
here is
justified
not-
us as being on equal footing as you.
We're both
Yeah.
ungrounded by your standard.
That's what I'm
Absolutely.
saying. Yes.
You both are
But I don't-
both
but I don't agree with
ungrounded
your
in
standard.
any
I
of
don't
We
our
all
think
do.
that's either.
cultural.
Right.
You're the permanence part of it that you keep trying to put into grounding.
That's what
not
it
fair.
means.
So wait a second. Let's apply this to truth for a second, okay? Is truth grounded in
Why are we
something
applying it
objective,
to
or is that
truth?
because the claim about morality is an epistemic claim as well? So it's relevant. So
I
would
don't,
that
I don't
apply?
think that morality is an objective, absolute truth.
Okay, but do you think that truth itself requires grounding or not? Do you take the same approach to truth as you do morality?
I don't know that I understand the question. I think that truth is a feature of.
Is truth
Right.
ultimately grounded in something, or is it just like morality is just grounded in the whims of time, cultural?
I think these are category errors. Like, I think you're trying to compare two things that aren't compared.
Okay, what's the category error? They're both
The
transcendental
category error
categories.
being that there is an overarching truth about reality. Like there's a truth about what happens in reality and everything. But I don't think that morality follows along that paradigm, making it a category error between the two.
How is that
Okay,
universal truth justified or grounded? What are you talking? Like what
Universal truth? Like I'm just talking about the truth of reality. Like there's a
Like what
like
is
there,
that?
there's a
Describe it to
truth.
me.
There's a truth as to whether or not one asteroid strikes another and there's nobody around to observe it, kind of similar to the whole thing of like if there's a tree that falls in a forest doesn't make a sound. I think that there's an overarching
Based on
truth.
Are you a naturalist? Because based on your own methods, you wouldn't be able to make a truth or a fact claim based on something that can't be observed. Same with the asteroid.
I'm a methodological naturalist, so I mean I think that I can definitely make those kinds of statements.
How? So you have to make an argument for why you can do that.
Okay, yeah. So like to answer the question of if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a sound? Yes, it does, because sound is the compression of air molecules, and so when a tree falls, there's still a compression of air molecules that happens. Therefore, a tree still makes a sound.
Yeah, but this is the Hume's guillotine, because Hume highlighted that we can expect the sun to rise tomorrow, but we can't prove it inductively. If you're going to be consistent as an atheist, you can't prove it until it's observable. So I agree with you. The probability of the tree falling making noise, absolutely, I agree with you. But in regards to justifying that as a truth claim through inductive measures, you can only do it by actually witnessing it.
No. I mean, we can use the basic principles of physics and like reality in order to know that it would still make a sound, as long as it's like a tree that falls on Earth and not some other
sense based on your own epistemology.
No, yes, I can know. Like, and under what conditions would a tree not make a noise if it falls?
We
Well,
know
if your
Hume's
magical
problem-
wizard
Hume
deems
is
it to be
literally one of
so,
the
is
greatest
that
atheist
what it is?
philosophers.
The definition
if-
of what a sound
We
is.
obviously expect the sun to rise
Fascinating.
tomorrow, but he's making the philosophical.
I'll tell you. Is it possible for air not to be present in the natural world?
On Earth, we are filled with on Earth we are filled with a mixture that we call air, and so no,
Is
I
it
don't
possible? I didn't ask if air exists right now. I said, is it logically possible for air to not exist?
Fall either,
Hold on, Flow State. I'm asking a question to your opponent. Is it logically possible for air not to exist on Earth?
Wait, to his opponent? Oh, I feel like we're on the same side.
No, sorry, your teammate. I apologize.
Did say opponent.
Yeah. So is it possible, logically possible, for air not to exist, say on another planet?
Technically, anything's possible. But
okay, so
to make it probable, you would need to make.
Okay, so then it's possible then logically for a tree to fall and not make any sound, given that sound requires air, right?
Well, I mean, it requires a medium in order to.
The answer is yes. Yeah, the answer is yes.
So, no. I mean, so it's not just air. Like if a tree falls in a mixture that's not necessarily what we would consider to be air, it would still make a sound.
Is it possible for a tree to fall in a vacuum and not make any sound, practically?
I mean, if there's no medium to compress, then yes.
So yes. Okay, so what David's pointing to is, well, something like that, being that it's logically and practically possible to produce a tree falling without sound in the current state of things, what he's pointing to is that you have to assume induction, the regularity of things, such that you could know a tree is falling in the past or the future and making a sound.
I'm sorry, you're really pulling nut hairs off of a fly here, because I mean, we're seriously just talking about a regular fucking forest on a regular portion of Earth. We're just
let Jimbob finish though. He was
no, that's not a counter to what I said. You're just kind of mad that you just got caught in a problem.
No, I'm not mad about anything. I'm saying that you're making a mountain out of a molehill or whatever in the fuck that saying.
I like platitudes. Do you sell those as bumper stickers?
What?
Do you sell your platitudes as bumper stickers, or do you debate?
No, but you do, right? You do.
You do. Great one.
Gentlemen, back to
let's get
point.
back. Let's get back to morality.
I just don't see why you're shitting on selling bumper stickers when you do the exact
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. If morality, from your view, can be grounded in some culture, right, that just declares its standards, right? If we currently live in a culture where you and Flow State don't even agree on your moral convictions, who has the properly grounded morality, Flow State or you?
How do you know we don't agree?
Because
do women have penises?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so let me ask you this: is
answer our question.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play y'all's game. Is child rape okay or no?
Oh, let's use wise words, please kindly.
Okay, sorry. Is child rape okay? Is child
from your
rape
view,
okay?
yes. Yeah, from your view, yes.
No, not from my view. From your view.
Well, how can you argue against a culture that says it's okay?
Yeah, it's totally relative to the culture. Your view.
My culture definitely doesn't say it's okay.
Matter about
I
your
can justify
culture.
why it's wrong.
Morality.
I'm looking for you to justify using the Bible that child rape is not okay. Justify using the Bible, using Yahweh's morality.
Child rape in a different culture is not okay. What's your standard?
Based on your standard.
I'm asking the question.
Hey, listen.
I want to know the viability of your moral foundation. So using Scripture, justify to me that child rape is not okay.
What do you mean using Scripture?
You don't even appeal to Scripture, so why would
genital
we
mutilation if you like that one?
Hold on, just so you know, if there's something in the past biblically that's described as occurring, and from your own view at that time is totally permissible, right? It seems like your argument is child rape is okay, but it's okay for you. Is that your argument?
No, that's not what.
So is it okay?
It
is your argument.
On your moral foundation, is child rape okay?
Do you notice that I asked you a question first and you dodged it? Okay, so the question is.
No, first of all, you asked.
I asked you a question about your.
No.
You dodged the question.
Hold on.
You did dodge it.
We asked you about Skittles stuff. Can a man have a baby? Right? Can this kind of stuff, this cultural relevant stuff today that you two probably don't agree on? I'm asking you, if it's the case that you don't agree, let's say hypothetically, you guys are both secularists arguing for the same position. Right. If both of you disagree on a moral statement and you both hold the same standard and you both think it can be grounded, right? Which one has the proper grounding if you disagree on a moral statement?
we can disagree on things, and it has no problem. Like we have no, we don't have a conflict
right?
between us.
I
We
said
just disagree with
You
each
have
other.
two
That's
church
it.
leaders who
And
disagree.
that
Who's
shows
right?
that there's the relativism, and that's literally
There's differing opinions don't
a logical debate.
One at a
don't
time. One at
negate
a
the
time.
system.
So the answer is no. Neither of you have the proper grounding. You just have different grounding, right?
We have different grounding, and also religious people have different grounding. Like you have different grounding from Christians of the past, so I don't see a
No,
difference here.
no,
you're
can't.
you're making a distinction
You
without
don't.
a difference.
So
What Christian of the past has a different morality than myself?
Well, Paul the apostle, I mean, he was perfectly fine with child grape. Are you fine with child grape?
He was absolutely
How's
not
that?
fine with child grape. What are you talking about?
Cite the scripture where Paul says,
No, it's
"Don't
your
rape
job.
children."
No,
No.
you made the claim. No,
You made
that's
the
not how this
claim,
works,
buddy.
dude. You don't get to make the claim that Paul's okay with X, and then you say, David, cite the scripture for
find
me.
the verse
I
that
do
refutes
agree.
it.
I do agree with that. If you're going to make the claim and you want
You have to
want
cite.
it
You have to
cited,
justify it.
right?
what
We
it
about-
would
we don't cite it
what
for you,
about the
buddy.
tradition of genital mutilation in religion,
Well,
What?
absolutely against
Gen-
it. We're Orthodox
general
Christians, not
religion?
Muslims.
genital in Judaism and then Christianity, of course, Trinity penis. Yeah.
Are we Jews? Are we Jews?
Wait,
I don't-
hold on. Where in Christianity is there genital mutilation?
Circumcision.
That's and the Council of Jerusalem said that wasn't necessary. So that was literally the first council in the 60s AD, 62, 63.
Right? Is
So
God
if
the
it was-
same in the
if it was
past
under
as He is
Judaism,
now?
Did God change his mind? Was he wrong?
No, it's progressive revelation, as I laid out in my opening statement. Is
Right,
that
right.
you
Is
don't
God
need-
is so
Am I
so
able
you're
to-
saying that God
You
is
gotta-
not
you gotta let him
omnipotent?
answer. Hey, you gotta let him answer.
Whoa. Hold on. David, please finish and then back to you, John.
Thank you. So he asked, did God change his mind? So in our paradigm, which really was what this debate is about, it's about different paradigms of understanding, that God in the Old Testament was revealing himself in a fallen world in which we would understand them as, in a sense, sort of spiritually adolescent. And so he's clarifying rules throughout the Old Testament in which is fulfilled in Christ. So when you get, like I said, with polygamy or what any sort of perceived violence or atrocity in the Old Testament, you guys would have to show me a context historically in the ancient period in which that wasn't the case, because God is clarifying rules and obligations that then are later fulfilled in the New Testament with Christ's arrival. And we don't uphold most of those things. He fulfilled the law of Moses.
Yeah, for instance, if
Right,
I'm a
you're
father,
especially pleading.
Well, hold on. Let John. It
Go
was
ahead.
his turn.
So what I'm hearing is that you're specially pleading for God. I'm assuming
No.
since you're Orthodox Christians, you would agree that God is the same in the past as he is now, as he would be in the future.
Absolutely.
Jesus
Let him
is also God. Therefore, Jesus is responsible for ordering the Israelites to force prepubescent girls into sexual slavery, also prescribing chattel slavery, and also the raping of children.
First of all, again, whatever appealed dislike you have with the Old Testament, you're going to have to provide a grounding for why that's wrong, an objective grounding, which obviously you can't, because you've already conceded that your morality is subjective. And as we said,
No, actually, I don't have to. I'm sorry to interrupt, but actually, I don't have to do
Keep
any
going.
of that, because what I'm trying to establish right now is simply that y'all's morality offers no more objective moral truth than our
Absolutely.
morality.
so
right
you
now.
concede the debate then.
you concede the debate.
No, I
It's
don't.
a
I don't
concession
concede
of the
the debate. I'm
You
saying
just
that
said it with
y'all
your own
are
words.
trying to stand. No, hold on. Y'all are trying to stand on this hill of like objectivity and transcendence and all this other stuff. I've got my notes written down right here from when y'all were yapping earlier. Essentially, y'all think that y'all have the moral high ground here when you really don't, because you can find places in the Old Testament where God specifically commands that Israelites force young prepubescent girls into
Where at?
marriage, which is equivalent to grape.
Where,
And I'd
where's
like to
that
point
at?
out that David just said that
Numbers
we
31.
we can't demonstrate that any of
Numbers
these
31
things
has
are
to do with
immoral.
Let
Midianites.
Flo. Let Flo go, please.
Okay. And now, well,
Thank you.
yes, go ahead.
That's it. I just wanted to point out that your response to these, David, was that we can't prove that those things are immoral.
Well, can you?
Which I think is telling.
that's an opportunity for you
I don't-
guys to
I don't
provide
think
an
that-
objective standard.
It's not even a
Some things
proof
are
issue.
innately
It's not an
known.
issue of proof, by the way. It's an issue of presenting a standard by which you're going to refer to and say, against this standard, this is
Which-
immoral.
Which
if those
standard
are
would you guys
relative-
reference to show that these things are immoral?
Well, first of all, you have to start with acting against humans, right? What is a human being such that he has dignity? A Christian perspective has a distinction for why humans have dignity. You guys don't have that. Why would it be wrong to act against any human being, let alone any creature, if there's no dignity? You can't ground dignity in the natural world. You can't ground morality in the natural world. From your guys' view, you have some sort of pseudo evolutionary view that just basically says whatever behaviors happen in humanity across time is selected for, whether it's temporary or maintains itself. So from that view, you don't really have a position to critique the Bible, even if we granted every perverse upside down take that you have biblically. This question of tonight is whether or not you can tell me from your view if that's immoral anyway. Right. Let's say you said the word.
Did you just answer my question by saying humans have dignity? But that's. You
need dignity to make moral claims about human behavior. Right. You know, how we act with each other. Maybe or not.
Maybe.
Is there a value to human beings or not?
I think that you can get there through self-interest and respect. I think that you can
self-interest
you can get there without it. Because
did Mao have some self-interest?
But my question was,
did Mao Zedong have some self-interest?
My question was how you would demonstrate that child rape, mutilation, genital mutilation, things like these that occurred in the Old Testament with God's blessing, how you demonstrate that these things, which are obviously atrocities, I think we'd all believe that, are not moral.
Well, the distinction
that those things are moral.
I think you guys are confusing two things. One is the ontological standard for morality as a being called God, right? In our view, God is the being. I am talking right now, dude.
Yeah, let him.
Listen,
let him finish.
Shut your mouth. So, if this is a case, it doesn't follow that the prescriptions or the guidance that's delivered is identical to the standard of the being. So you're saying what God says is the moral law, kind of in a sense, right? As opposed to God himself. For instance, I'm a parent, right? Anyone else a parent? Are you Flow State or John? Is that your name? Okay. So do you deliver the full moral law to your kids, no matter what age they are? Your moral law.
I'm definitely sure to teach my kid not to rape children.
That's not the question.
The question is, do you deliver the fullness of your moral prescriptions, or do you spread it out across age based on their age and development?
You know what I won't do is
so you're not going to answer the question.
I won't. No. I'll tell you because what I'm not going to do. No, listen. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to tell my son to rape children and then not.
I didn't ask what you're going to do.
Not what we asked.
That's totally a dodge, dude. I asked you a simple question. Can you even give me back my question?
No, because it's a shitty malformed question. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the handbook of my morality to my son when he's 5 years old. But what I'm not going to do,
progressive.
Are you going to allow me to fucking answer, Jimbob?
You won't answer, though. You're a dodger.
But I am. I'm currently answering. I'm trying to answer. Are you going to let me fucking answer?
Gentlemen,
okay,
what
little
I will
dodger.
say, there's almost 700 watching. Please be sure, whatever end you're watching on, give it a like, subscribe, share, do your job on that end. What I will say, John, is it would be, because it's a debate, it would be respectful to answer the question as it is in context of the argument. If it was outside of it, I would say it's a wash. But I do think for purposes of the debate, it would be respectable to answer it however you need to.
I can frame it differently if you think it's informed.
I'm trying to currently answer, but he's not allowing me to answer.
You didn't even tell me you understand the question.
Allow me to fucking answer.
Tell him to repeat the question. I bet he can't even do it.
No. I understand the question. You were asking a leading question to ask. You were asking me if I would reveal my entire moral handbook to my 5-year-old, 10-year-old, whatever year old son. All right. Mm-hmm. It's a leading question. You're trying to paint me into a corner and you're trying to get me to answer in a very specific way. And it's a very disingenuous debate tactic that you're trying to do. What I'm trying to actually do is answer your question in that I would not reveal the entirety of my moral handbook to my son. But as a caveat, I would not on one hand tell my, hold on, I'm fucking talking, David.
Let him finish.
Am I talking?
Sounds like you're crying.
No, I'm not crying. I'm trying to state I'm fucking talking here. Allow me to actually finish answering the question. Is that allowed?
If you ever
How
get
many
to
times
it.
have you interrupted me? Come on.
All right, gentlemen, please behave for just a moment. Let him finish.
He's sensitive.
Okay.
You haven't earned that
what
cutoff,
I'm
by the
not
way.
what I'm not gonna do, Jimbob, what I'm not gonna do is I'm not gonna in one breath tell him go and grape children, and then in another breath tell him, hey, it's not okay to grape children, which God doesn't actually say in the scriptures.
So all I really need to get from you, I don't need your shitty interpretation of scripture. What I
Exactly,
need
that's
from
where I
you
was with
is
Hermeneutics.
admitting that even in your own parenting, even as a secularist, you have progressive revelation in a sense, not in the scriptural sense, but you reveal to your children what's appropriate of the time, right?
Wouldn't we have
What's
higher
what
standards
they
of
need to
God?
know.
But I don't change.
Is it a
I don't-
yes?
I would-
I don't
I would
change my
say,
mind.
here's what I'm going to say, Jim Bob. I would land the plane quickly before it flames out
Gotcha.
into hell.
Yeah. Okay.
I see where you're going with it, but I would land it quickly.
Well, that's what I just needed him to get to understand the concept first, right? His view of how or what's being prescribed is not what's in question right now. What's in question is whether or not progressive revelation in regards to morality is logical, and under your own view, it actually is under your own system, correct?
Right.
No, it's not, because
It's not. It's not.
my
No.
particular
Okay.
no. So my particular moral foundation would not contradict itself. See, that's the thing. I'm not the one claiming transcendent and absolute moral foundations here. Y'all are, but yet your God has two different proclamations as far as child grape goes.
And
What I
the
do
timeline.
know is that as far as what I would tell my son is that it's not okay to grape children. But what we find in the Bible is God explicitly commanding the Israelites to grape children.
And if
So
you're
it kind of seems like you need to justify
That's not
on
even
your
accurate.
end why
That's
God would
great.
prescribe that.
However, we would say if we lived in a culture that permitted it, it would be okay, right? You would teach your son that.
Exactly.
There's no reason to think that we
supposing
would.
what if
Hold on.
situations
All
is
right.
not
Listen,
conducive to this, discussion.
boys. If you ask a question, allow the answer. I know that you're all worked up. I love it. I love the tension, but it is getting like loud up in here, and that means it's loud for the viewers too. So if you're going to ask the question, take a breath, let them answer. Then you can make fun of them after they give their answer, and so on and so forth. But at least allow the answer. Okay, back to you.
There is no reason to think that we would allow that, while we can look at history and know that you do allow that.
What do you mean? That we have every reason to believe from your system that you would participate in the times, because that's your model.
Speculating, and we're not.
No,
Well,
I'm
you
basically
said-
using your standard, dude.
Yeah, you guys
That's
are
not speculation.
moral as a cultural construction based on your guys'
Right.
arguments. We're putting you in the ancient period and asking you to, one, show any diversion amongst ancient cultures, which you won't be able to, and highlighting that if morality is a cultural construction, then you would have abided by the precepts during that period.
Right.
Take it.
Okay, so if that were the case, then please, using your orthodoxy, justify why child grape is bad and why God would specifically command child grape.
Well, he doesn't.
No, you
He
just smuggled
definitely
the
does.
assertion.
Numbers 31, and also
Number
any
31 is
marriage in the
describing
Bible.
the Israelites going to battle with the Midianites. And why did they go to battle, John? Tell us a little bit, since you're such a biblical scholar. What happened
Race
in number
mixing.
31? Why did God command Israel to battle the
Vengeance
Midianites?
for race mixing.
No, actually, it had to do with them luring them into idolatry, in which the Israelites began worshiping Baal and performing rituals, included human sacrifice, child sacrifice. and
Oh,
such.
So you're
I'm so glad you
justifying
brought that up, David.
Because
Can
God
I
is
answer this?
clarifying that these
Oh,
things.
You're not letting him finish.
Let him finish. Let him finish,
Exactly.
and then to you, John. You
God,
guys are
dude,
killing
shut
me tonight.
So what's happening is God is clarifying that these things actually transgress the moral code, given the fact that the Israelites are in an adolescent spiritual state, since the law is still being developed through their understanding. The moral law doesn't change from the beginning of creation to the end of creation. There's only one standard. But the people who are abiding by the moral law don't understand it, which gets back to Jimbob's hypothetical with your child, which you've already conceded and said that you do the same thing. God's doing the same thing with his children, which is us. And
By the
because
way-
Midianites lured these
Hold on, let
the
me
Israelites
finish.
into
Sorry.
temptation and debauchery, he is demonstrating that the transgression of sin actually comes with divine judgment. That's what's occurring in
What
number
good does it do
31.
us to learn these
Also-
things
also,
over many,
wait.
many generations?
Also, where is in Numbers is there child grape? Where are you finding that?
Okay, I'll first answer DPH before I get to Jimbob over there.
Thank you.
So you're trying to tell me, DPH, David, that in order to stop child sacrifice, God directly commands child sacrifice in order to stop child sacrifice? So I guess under God's eye, it's not okay to sacrifice children unless you're sacrificing children for God, for Yahweh. Is that right?
When are children sacrificed for the purpose of devotional worship?
Do you know what sacrifice means?
Do you even know what human
No,
sacrifice?
yeah.
You're
Okay.
talking about,
So
dude.
if y'all have a problem with sacrifice, then just unalive or murder. So you're saying that it's okay to murder the children before their sacrifices for Baal.
The reason that had to do was God revealing the transgression of his moral commandments, in which the Midianites were debaucherous, performed sexual immorality was rampant. All these different things leading into Baal worship, child sacrifice, and God is demonstrating that this is transgressing the sinful law.
Is part of child sacrifice murdering the child?
No, it's not the same thing.
No, sacrifice is a
Okay.
specific ritual.
Killing the child. Is it killing the child?
That's still not sacrifice. Murder is not the same thing as sacrifice.
Oh, what?
And
Okay.
killing,
So what
killing is not the same as murder.
If sacrifice isn't killing the child, what is sacrifice to you?
Sacrifice in this.
Are you familiar with like Moloch worship and Baal worship? That's what child sacrifice.
No, I understand like what apologists say about that, but it usually involves the killing of a child, and so I'm just trying to get to see if y'all think that children were killed by
sacrifice. Doesn't require a death necessarily. So if you're going to be using terms,
if a child isn't killed, then
hold on, let him clarify.
Where's the bad?
I'm asking you. Okay, look, there's a distinction between sacrifice, human sacrifice like death, a distinction between murder and killing, and you're kind of putting them all into one basket and using it as some sort of flimsy attack. By the way, I'm still waiting on where in Numbers it condones or even mentions child rape.
Numbers 31:18.
Yeah, and they would still be subject to Hebrew marriage laws, so that they would still have to be post-pubescent.
Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man,
present.
but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man.
Yeah, where does that say? Where does that say grape? Where does it mention grape?
And then if you skip to Numbers 25, it talks about how if you read through Numbers 25 to like 31, God specifically deems how you're supposed to divvy up all of the children.
Still waiting on the grape term though. Just didn't get it.
First,
one out of every 500 girls is to be sacrificed to God. Right, marriage is grape at this particular time. There is no word for marriage in the Hebrew language. The way that Israelites married women were.
You're just a liar. You're just a liar.
Marriage.
No. You can read Dr. Jennifer Bird's Marriage in the Bible.
I can't wait to talk to Jennifer. Is she debating tonight, or do you need her to call in and do a helpline?
No, but I'm just I'm using
I'll talk to Jennifer
in order to educate you guys.
So Jennifer
said those who fought the battle was 16,000 people, of whom the tribute for the Lord was 32.
Cool. Why is child sacrifice wrong under your view?
Yeah.
I don't have to justify why it's wrong. What I have to do is show that y'all's can't justify it as wrong.
In a debate called "Can Secularism Ground Morality?" you don't have to tell me whether or not child sacrifice is wrong.
No, because again, that's not because
No.
that's not the question of the debate. The question of
It's
the
not?
debate. No. The question of the debate is whether or not we can ground our morality. We've already grounded our morality.
No, you have not.
I'm
We
trying
can
to
ground
prove
it
that
in negative
y'all's
rights.
morality
We can
is also
basically ground it in
subjective.
actually just about anything, and it would still be
Really?
better than what you've got yours
Do it.
grounded in.
Do
We
it.
could
Ground it in
ground it
one
in
thing.
applesauce,
Do
and
it
it would be
then.
better.
Do
than
it.
what you've grounded in.
Do it. Do it. Do it. Negative rights, applesauce. You give it a shot, right? Because obviously, you guys, philosophically speaking, you have no idea what grounded actually means. If grounded means to you temporal and changing from Tuesday to
Grounding, the
Wednesday,
act, method, or process of laying a groundwork or foundation.
okay, a foundation for morality that says X is wrong at 5 p.m. From your model, can it be not the case at 5:01? Yes or no?
My morality is grounded in applesauce, and it is still wrong.
Okay, I'll ask John. John, from your system, is it logically and practically possible to ground your morality, say about a certain action, right? You don't have to say the action. Could that action be wrong at 5 p.m. and also right at 5:01?
Sure, but I don't see how that means it's
Okay.
not grounded.
Grounded minute to minute. How about seconds?
No, it doesn't matter. It's still grounded.
doesn't
Like, I
matter.
still
It's
have a
grounded for
moral
a second.
foundation.
And yours
Okay.
is grounded minute to minute, second to second as well, because no matter how much you guys try to act like you have an objective
No,
standard,
we couldn't change it.
every
can't
time
change
the
it. What are you
mechanics of
talking
making
about?
a moral decision are the same for you and I. Every
Mechanics
decision-
isn't the
every
standard, dude.
decision-
No, no, no.
Every decision, you make the decision on your own, whether it's to follow a doctrine or not.
Would that make math subjective? The mechanics are all the same that we use our faculties to do math.
Math
Does that
isn't a
follow?
decision.
Hold on. Does it follow that the foundation of truth that math is derived from changes merely because we share mechanics?
We're talking about
No,
moral
math
decision
is a-
making, not math. That's
Your
not a good
reasoning
comparison.
is no. Your reasoning is that it's not grounded because mechanically it's the same. So if that's your reasoning, that reasoning should apply to other objective things.
Right.
It's not objective. Your
Morality's
morality
not
is not
objective.
objective. As
Right.
much as you try to insist
So
it is,
you,
it's not.
so you conceded the debate.
So there's no grounding for it then. You just
No, you're
conceded the
ad hoc
debate.
stating what it means to be grounded, and we're just using the definition of what it means to be
Hey,
grounded.
hey,
So,
flow state.
Other than to bring
is-
your own definition. Right?
Flow state, is
No.
homosexuality immoral to you?
um,
I think that it is not immoral. It is unnatural to a degree.
Okay, and then what do you think, John?
I think it doesn't matter what I think in this particular context.
Wow, you're a Dodge queen, huh? You should put a mask on.
No. I'm just saying
You
that this
just dodge it like
doesn't
fucking
matter.
Matrix, dude.
No, it doesn't matter how I ground my morality, and it doesn't matter how
Isn't
he
it
grounds
a
his
different
morality.
debate?
And
You guys
it's
completely quit
morality.
trying to win this debate and just started trying to piss people off.
I didn't try.
Is that-
You guys did it for
You
us.
guys conceded the debate
No,
already.
see,
It's
this
amazing
is
you
a
don't
debate
realize
tactic.
that.
He's trying to pit me against flow state here, and
That's
that's
right,
just
because
not gonna work.
demonstrating that you guys don't share the same
don't even-
standard.
You guys haven't even begun to ground your morality. You just insist that it is objective. It is
Okay,
objective.
okay. Let's start in
not,
baby
though.
steps with
We can
crayons.
look at-
Okay,
we can look
okay.
throughout the
More-
history of
hey,
religion, and we can see that it's subjective.
Flow
I
state.
don't have experience with crayons. They're Jimbob.
All right,
Flow state.
reset, gentlemen.
Flow state.
Jimbob, ask your question.
This is for both of you. Does morality refer to how we ought to behave as beings?
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Now, given that morality refers to how we ought to operate in beings, could you derive how we ought to operate as beings from inanimate objects?
Could you derive it? No, it doesn't apply to inanimate objects because they can't behave morally.
Okay, so it necessitates a being, right?
It necessitates more than one person. Yes.
Hold on. If it's two people that disagree, I'm just starting with being. Let's forget the plurality. Let's just say being. It necessitates a being with a mind and a
Two of them.
standard.
No,
As the standard.
it necessitates two of them because
two.
because you can't steal something if you're the only person on the island. For instance.
Well, stealing is a legal term. So let's just stick to an immoral. Okay,
An
let's-
immoral
let's say-
action requires another person to be the victim of it.
to act against. Okay, so from your view, you can't act against yourself. So the standard doesn't apply to yourself. It's impossible to act immorally to yourself.
If I'm the only person on Earth, then yes, no, then I can do whatever I want to myself.
So
and nobody can
self-deletion is totally fine, right?
say it. If I'm the only person on Earth, yes, it's totally fine.
No. Self-deletion totally, like with more people.
No.
Why is
No,
it
that
immoral?
That doesn't follow because I'm
Why?
not the only one impacted by that.
No.
Am I?
So consequentialist view. This is good. So from your view, it's immoral to off yourself because of the impact it has on others, right?
That would be correct.
Okay. And so is it immoral for them to use force to stop you because it violates your will and your negative rights?
It depends on the circumstances.
That is the circumstances. You're about to off yourself. From your view,
You're
it's
not talking
immoral
about-
to off yourself because you're harming them, but it's also immoral from your own position for them to use force to stop you. You're in a conundrum.
Not
Which
as
is
big a
immoral?
conundrum as you are in with your
No, that's a
child
dodge.
raping.
Let's notice the dodge here. Which
Yeah.
should we do? Which is
Notice
the
the
moral
dodge.
thing?
You haven't established one thing all night. Establish
look,
something.
the-
Show me how your morality
establishing-
is permanent.
Well,
and
first of
objective.
all, I'm establishing that morality in regards to being the standard that gives us our oughts is necessarily a being. You said it's two beings.
Two beings are required for an action to be immoral. Yes.
Okay, and which of the two beings are the absolute? Like, if they disagree,
It doesn't matter. This is irrelevant. This is minutia.
Oh, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. I'm asking for the grounding standard, and you admit that it necessitates a being.
Hold on, Jimbob. Give him an opportunity.
If you two disagree, how are you guys gonna resolve this issue?
We don't disagree.
We don't disagree because we use a normative authority.
Surely
We
there's
use a transcendent authority. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the authority, you default to authority, right? So you go to a priest or whatever. Yeah.
Well,
No, it
not
has
just
to do
the
with God's
priests.
authority.
Yeah,
They're
the priest
they're subject
represents.
to the same moral law.
But I mean, how does
Yeah.
the information get to you? It would get to you through a priest.
No, well, it's been revealed, which is,
Right.
again, getting back to the ultimate argument here, which is a transcendental argument demonstrating paradigms. As Jimbob highlighted, you can't get a moral ought out of inanimate objects, which the only way you can do that is through inductive methods. So what we're doing here is highlighting the coherency of our argument versus the incoherency of your argument. There's only two ways to prove something to be true. Let me finish. Correspondence theory of truth, coherency theory of truth. We're dealing with transcendentals tonight, fellas. We're dealing with non-physical things. So when we're talking about the objectivity of like numbers, the laws of language, the laws of logic, these things are called philosophical transcendentals, and you have to create metaphysical justification for these things existing. If you're purely naturalist and you believe in evolution, you believe in a physically ever-changing universe, how could you even appeal to non-physical things being permanent and objective? You can't. Therefore, what we're doing is demonstrating that morality falls into the same category. It's something you can't taste or touch. We embody morality as a transcendent value, and so you don't have to be a Christian for us to use our argument. We're using a transcendental argument, which is appealing to a transcendent source. Now, you guys don't have a transcendent source, so you guys are kind of screwed. But obviously, we are Orthodox Christians, so we're appealing to the Holy Trinity. Our argument then is demonstrating that the objective reality of morality is most coherently accounted for, both grounding and justification, through philosophical methods. So these are secular methods here. We're not even using theology to justify this.
Well, I wasn't really asking about the
coherent
philosophical
argument that we're presenting
method.
actually provides an absolute, universal, necessary authority for moral law, and this was related to the apologetic argument for morality.
My question was literally, how do you get your information? How do you?
That's been revealed.
To who?
God revealed it to humanity.
Okay, so how do you learn about it? Is it from a priest? Is it from
It's
a
written
book?
on your heart. Do you agree with that?
Okay, it's written on your heart. So you're saying that religion is not necessary.
No. You need a religious paradigm to know what heart means in this case. Now, do you accept that the phrase flow state that morality is written on your heart?
I understand what the phrase means, and I would agree with it. I think that it is biological.
Notice how your opponent doesn't agree with. Now, John, is that your name,
There's
John?
a biological foundation to morality. I agree.
Okay, John, do you think that morality is biological?
So there's two different questions being asked here. So is morality biological? Yes, I believe it is. But when you quote scripture saying that morality is written on our heart, or the law of God is written on our heart, that's a kind of a different thing.
Yeah, I agree.
If that's the case, then as a Christian, you should be fine with forcing women into marriages and therefore raping them. Are you fine with raping women?
No, that doesn't follow. That's a massive jump, by the way. Let's stick with your first thing, what I agree with.
No, it's not a massive jump. Let me explain.
It is.
So in the scriptures, both the Newer Testament and the Hebrew Bible, all marriages are forced marriages. You purchase women with dowries, and women's consent are not considered when they enter into marriages. And by scholarly definitions of what grape is and what sexual slavery is, those forced marriages would fall under that. So it kind of seems like God is perfectly fine condoning and commanding the forceful marriage of women, which amounts to rape.
No,
So
actually,
do
we
you
can point to an easy verse, Genesis 24:57 through 58. This is Rebekah's consent to marry Isaac. So this whole idea that all marriage in the Bible is non-consensual is absolutely ridiculous, because the verse literally says, after Abraham brings his son to the family of Rebekah, and they agree that Isaac would be a good candidate to be her husband, they say, well, let us call the young woman and ask her. So they called Rebekah and said to her, will you go with this man? And she said, I will go. That is a consensual relationship, which debunks, again, the entire premise of what you just said. So thank
No,
you.
it doesn't, because that is a group outside of the Israelite people. That is Isaac being given or choosing a wife, and a group outside of the Israelite population
Is it
choosing
consent?
somebody.
Is it consent? Is Genesis 24 describing consent?
I'm saying that it doesn't
Is it
apply because
describing
they're not
consent?
part of the
Yes or
the
no?
chosen
Is it
people.
describing consent?
It may be describing consent,
Uh-huh.
but it's because they're a group outside of the Israelite people. All marriages within
No.
the Israelite people are forced marriages.
No.
Okay, so do you think that forced marriages are wrong? I'm trying to understand from your view. Is that the claim, or?
On my subjective moral
Yeah.
foundation, yes, forced marriages are wrong.
But what about tomorrow? If that changed
Yeah.
for you, they wouldn't be wrong. It wouldn't be wrong if you changed tomorrow.
Do you-
I feel like I'm pretty set in my ways as far as my moral
I
foundation
said-
goes.
I didn't ask if you ate breakfast this morning, and you said, well, how would you feel if you ate breakfast? And you say, well, I did eat breakfast. I asked, is it possible under your system that forced marriage and grape is not wrong tomorrow? Is it logically possible under your system that it's no longer wrong tomorrow? Yes or no?
For me and my moral foundation, no, it is not.
It's not possible. So now you have a fixed moral standard, whereas before I just asked you, could the moral?
No. I'm
claim-
not saying
Hold
that
on.
I have a fixed moral standard just because this is a
You just
composite
interrupted me.
fallacy.
Look, no, listen. I asked you before.
Because you're
And a moral-
misrepresenting me.
No, I didn't. I asked you directly.
I
at
will
5
allow him to clarify, Jimbob. After you're done, you'll be
Okay,
you'll be
at
given
5 p.m., I said X is immoral. I said, is it possible under your paradigm that at 5:01 the thing you said is immoral is no longer immoral? You said yes, and now you're saying that's not possible. That's a contradiction.
No, it's not a contradiction because I'm
Yes, it is.
specifically talking about one particular, like, actual concrete example, whereas you were arbitrarily talking about things. So, like, arbitrarily speaking, can it change? Sure. On this one particular thing, no. So you're making
Why
a
on this one
composite
thing?
fallacy.
But yours
Okay,
does
great.
change.
You're
Hold on. Let David
you're
finish.
making
Gentlemen,
you're ma-
let David finish. Or I'm sorry, John.
So you're making a composite fallacy by saying that because this one particular thing, on my opinion, cannot change, therefore my entire moral foundation cannot change. This is a fallacy.
Okay, listen. Now you're appealing to one instance, in this case, forced grape or whatever, and you're saying it's absolutely wrong. It'll probably be wrong tomorrow. So what is it about this one instance that makes this an objectively fixed moral position on child grape, and the other things
hold
are
on.
not fixed?
Do you think it's wrong or not?
Dude, what the
Because
what
so
the
far
hell?
we've only been
Stop
talking
it.
about
No,
our.
he just
No,
mentioned
I
it,
know you
dude.
don't want to answer
Stop.
questions. but
Stop. No,
we have
it's
still
opposite.
not heard
Oh,
you guys'
it-
position on
we
any of these
just
moral
spent
things.
we just spent a bunch of time refuting his poor scriptural analysis. By the way, Rebecca was in the tribe. Okay,
What
so you're wrong on
do
that.
you believe about these things? Is what I think.
Their
we need to
acts
know now.
against their acts against right, and man is made in God's image, and we have, from our paradigm, an actual metaphysical status that is coherent. You don't have to accept it, but we
Okay.
do provide an account for what it is a human being is, such that we have value.
So
You
forced marriage
cannot.
is wrong. Is that what you're saying?
You're assuming we appeal to forced marriage. Okay,
Well, I'm not trying. I'm trying.
That's
not to
already
diminish,
wrong.
I'm trying to ask you the question. Is forced
Is
marriage wrong?
immoral. Yeah,
Okay.
What's your scriptural basis for that?
I'm not going into my hermeneutics because I don't. Tonight isn't the defense of
feel
you.
like
Hold on,
that.
let
So,
me
hold on,
answer.
wait a second. Your
me
entire moral
answer the question.
foundation is derived
No.
off of your hermeneutics of your scripture,
No.
but you're not going to
Actually,
address
it's not, because we're Orthodox
No.
Christians. So you must have only debated Protestants. We're not sola
Yeah,
scriptura
we don't do
Christians,
sola
and we believe
scriptura.
in an oral tradition as well. And so the tradition of Christians passed down through Christ Church, the Orthodox Church, does not prescribe forced marriage or
Well, that
child
sounds pretty
rape.
subjective to me. How do you know that
If
the oral tradition hasn't changed over time?
How
The
do we
oral
know
tradition,
the moral
the practices.
tradition hasn't changed over time.
Didn't you say an oral tradition passed down through by Christians? How do you know that that has been unchanging over 2,000 years?
Apostolic succession, the practices, the actual practices we participate in are long standing and they're passed down, right? The same way a lot of other traditions, even non-Christian traditions, are passed down. You would ask grandma, how do you know this hasn't changed? She would say some sort of succession. But in this
Because
case, it would be
everything
like
has changed over time.
culinary
Let him
succession,
finish.
right?
If I ask grandma about her recipe, about even my grandma remembers hearing the Bohemian prayers at family dinners, right? Like, so things do change over time.
Orally and written.
Both.
Just to clarify, David is having some connectivity issues on his end. He will be back shortly, but you guys can press on. I'm sure Jimbob's okay.
Okay, so I wanted to get to the topic of the debate is whether we can ground morality without God. Now you're saying yes. So even if God didn't exist, even if all of Orthodoxy was false, right? If it was a total fiction, right? You still have the burden of saying, yes, we can ground morality without God, and we still haven't heard how it is the case that you can.
Right.
Because grounding doesn't have to be permanent. The requirements that you're trying to drag in for grounding is unnecessary and not per definition.
Philosophically, definitely.
So we don't need to ground anything.
And also, you're even more ungrounded than it seems that we are.
How's that?
Make the argument.
Because, well, let's just take the example of forced marriage. You say that it's wrong now because it devalues human life, but it wasn't wrong in the Bible. What was it wrong? That is a change. That is a change in the morals.
No, it's not. We've already talked about a revealing of revelation throughout.
Your opponent already conceded to.
It wasn't wrong, but now we know more, and it is.
You guys
wrong
have already
now.
conceded that teachings
Go ahead,
are
Flow
dependent
State.
based on the maturity of the individual taking the lesson.
Right, but that paradigm doesn't apply when we're talking about generations of people over thousands of years. So what you're saying is what was right for people, what was right for generations of people 1,000, 2,000 years ago is now wrong because we teach our kids things incrementally, and that's just false. That's a false comparison.
That's what you took from our argument.
That's what I took from your argument. Can you make it better?
Yes, just as the example with the child that you would tell them, hey, you don't do X, Y, Z. You don't explain to them the intricacies of the morality or the reasons for something until they're mature enough to understand it. This is the reason for Christ fulfilling the law and creating a second covenant, which is the one that we abide by, passed down through apostolic succession in the Orthodox Church.
So
now,
we're mature today, but
our
adults
grounding,
thousands of years ago were not mature. Is that what you're saying?
Mature how? Spiritually mature?
Spiritually mature? Is that you're talking about spiritual maturity?
However you're using the word, I don't know.
That's what we're talking about, spiritual maturity. We are a unique ontological state post the incarnation of God.
Okay, so what was right for them back then is now wrong for us because we're different now. That is a change. No. That is absolutely a change in morals.
It's not that we changed. The laws never changed.
The laws did change.
No, it didn't.
No. You understand that just same way your opponent agreed that what's expected of you, right, deontologically, duty-wise, of your kids at certain ages, you don't press that on them, all at the same time. So if you both admit that even in your own standard that you progressively teach and deliver, the law. What?
Hold on,
they don't revert.
Go tag in.
If I can ask this question real quick, and this is directly correlates to the Bible. For either of the debate opponents here, DPH or Jimbob over there, would you ever tell your child that it's okay to grape a woman?
I wouldn't teach my child about grape.
At any point in their life, would you tell them that it's okay to grape a woman?
No.
No. What about you, David?
Same. And thankfully for us, that's never been explicitly something that God has advocated for in Scripture, as we've already highlighted with your faulty hermeneutics and exegesis of Numbers 31.
Yeah, garbage.
Okay, well, so Numbers 31,
which is relativistic because it's just your interpretation.
Go ahead, John.
Numbers 31 definitely has child grape in it, but
where? We asked you where, dude.
Where is
if we want to go to
actually justify
it.
Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourself every girl which has never slept with a man.
Where's the grape?
You don't see any grape in the subtext there.
What? Oh, so you're reading into it?
Is it okay to kill children?
Okay, so then you explain what do you think that they were doing with the virgin girls?
Saving those that were still pure
for marriage, make them good mothers, married mothers. Why would that be inconsistent with Christianity? Wouldn't it be more consistent?
Why did they murder all the boys then?
Listen, why isn't it my interpretation right? Is all you're asking, right?
I'm trying.
So Jimbob,
Why can't I read
at
into it
any
myself?
point at any point in your child's life, would you ever tell them, "Hey, it's okay to go over there and kill small children"?
No, because that's not the context we're living in as far as moral law. Right?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's probably. I'm
Why would
glad. I'm
context
totally.
matter
I
just on the
give you
moral
props for that. Right. I give you props
Context
for
doesn't
that.
matter, should it?
Why would that be a
God's law is
consistency,
unchanging.
though?
Why would context matter?
What?
God's law is unchanging. You just said that's not
The
the
law
context
doesn't-
we're
It is
living in, so
not.
why would
We've
context
already
matter
highlighted that.
to an unchanging God?
How?
Listen.
No, listen again. If God is the source and the standard for morality, right? A God could be unchanging, and the prescriptions across time can be delivered in progression. Correct?
Exactly.
That's true for your fatherhood, right? You've already admitted this, and yet you're now going, no, that's true for me, but it can't be true for God. Why not?
Because we're not claiming to be transcendent and absolutely moral.
You are claiming
like, throughout
transcendental
time.
things. Morality is a transcendental feature. Yeah, it is. Where's morality
disagree.
found? So do you teach your kids that morality exists?
Because we don't-
You do?
We don't treat.
Okay.
We don't teach our kids.
Dude, you
the
can't answer
inverse.
questions.
We wouldn't treat. None of us would teach our kids it's okay to kick that other kid.
Look,
and
I asked you a
then-
question.
and then pivot on a dime 180 degrees and say now it's not okay.
Will you
So
teach
this is
your
not a
kids?
progression. This is a reversal we're speaking.
Do
of.
you teach your kids that morality exists, has an ontological status?
Yes.
I teach my son morals. Yes.
Okay, and he says, "Where do morals exist, Dad? You're an empiricist."
Where do morals
Yeah,
exist?
where, Daddy? Daddy,
That's
where?
a
You're
dumb
the
fucking question.
It's a dumb question. That's your answer? Wow. If a kid asks, where do morals exist,
Because it's
Daddy, you're an
not a tangible
empiricist.
thing.
I can't touch it, Daddy.
A kid
Where
is
is it?
not going to ask that question.
What are you talking about? A kid's not going to ask that question. If you say
No,
morals
a
exist,
kid would ask, where do morals come from? Or why is this wrong? And I can explain why something is wrong to that child. Or I can explain how we develop morality,
Okay.
over time. Like I can explain those things to them, but they're not going to ask the things that you're trying to make a child ask.
I didn't ask whether you think a kid would ask it. You know what a hypothetical is? It tests your consistency.
No, I know what a hypothetical is.
Okay, great. So engage with the hypothetical. If a kid asks you, do morals exist, right? If you said you teach your kids morals, right? If they ask you, where do they exist? What are you going to say to them?
I'm going to say that moral foundations are an emergent property of social species.
Well, now you're screwed.
Yeah,
now you're
it's done.
screwed
How am
because
I
if it's an
screwed?
emergent property through evolution, it's only pragmatic. And so behaviors that shaped evolution are contingent on survival, are they not? So therefore, that's not an objective moral truth, as certain people could do immoral things for the person, for the survivability of themselves, or their group of people. So an emergent property
Right.
based on
If
evolution
you don't
doesn't
understand
actually
what
ground
evolution
anything.
is,
It's
sure.
a pragmatic definition of morality, which
By the way,
because that means it's relativistic and subjectivistic.
Yeah, and
that you
y'all
lose.
are operating off the same kind of relativistic and
when
subjective.
did it emerge? When did it emerge?
It emerged when Homo sapiens emerged out of proto-ape ancestry.
And okay, so how did you know the emergent property called morality emerged from Homo sapiens? Did you empirically test that?
Yeah.
It's an inherent property of
Did you
social
empirically
species.
test God?
No, God's not an empirical claim, but you guys are fucked because you're empiricists. So look,
Right.
if you say morality is an emergent property, not only are you counter to emergentism as a philosophy, did you know that? Emergentism debunks
I'm
that
fine with
morality.
I don't even know what that
morality.
philosophy is.
Okay, well, it's referring to.
You don't even need to know
novel-
any of it. This is not that deep a conversation. Morality is
Okay.
simple, and grounding
good
is
save.
simple, and we
Good
can
save,
establish
buddy.
that it's been done. That it's easy to do.
Okay, do you think it's an emergent property, flow state?
That what is morality?
Morality, emergence I would say biologically, John, is what you're referring to. The evolutionary process is underway. Homo sapiens stood up, and then emergent property morality came up from what, their brain? Is that brain
Homo
activity?
sapiens were already walking, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I think
it just
that you
seems
can-
like you don't understand what
You can
evolution
see
is.
the basis of moral behavior
relevant to the
all
point
throughout
we made, Johnny.
nature.
So what's the what's the indicator that morality emerged as an emergent property? What would the indicator be empirically?
The fact that we are social species and that the Homo genus is a social species by nature.
Wait, social species. So as soon as social behaviors emerged, morality emerged as an emergent property.
moral behaviors would be a beneficial factor of a social species.
It's a requirement.
Are bees a social species?
Yeah, and bees do have rudimentary forms of morality. Like
Oh,
moral
really? Do
foundations.
they?
And so then
How did
how do
you-
you make an argument against, for example, Aztec human sacrifice? We see the continuity of social groups, a unity amongst people that have a shared identity, a sacrificing of humans.
Well,
I
how
don't
do
know if
you
find
make
this
it?
wrong.
Hold on,
How do you argue against cannibalism?
How would
and
you make an
Papua New
argument
Guinea?
against human
How do you
sacrifice?
argue against diddling a corpse?
It's all emergent property. Human sacrifice would be an emergent property. So would
All
child
those
grave.
things can be found today.
It's also something that's been commanded by God, right?
You keep reasserting this again, and you don't justify the assertion.
Abraham and Isaac.
Saying two names is your justification. Wow,
You don't know the
Tim,
story?
Tim,
You're
Timmy
confused.
and
You
Carla.
don't know what I'm
Timmy and
referencing.
Carla.
Let him
Or did the
Flo
angel of
finish.
the Lord stop it?
At the
It
very
didn't
last
even
moment,
prove
he
your
did, but
point.
that
It's a
tells
dumb
us something about the nature of God, doesn't it? It tells us that God would and has commanded sacrifices, isn't that?
No, what it has to do is commanding that God's actually ending human sacrifice and testing the heart of Abraham, which is again fully revealed in Christ, the morality being revealed in the law of the heart. So they have societal laws moving
you
this
think that
progressive
us
revelation
interpreting-
to ultimately
You
Christ.
think that us interpreting child grape out of the numbers verse is too much? It's too big a stretch. But what you just said is not too big a stretch.
No.
How
is it? Tell us.
What do you mean? You have to tell us how it's a stretch.
Make
We
the
know how it's a
argument.
stretch for you to interpret numbers and
Make
make
the
a stretch.
Okay,
But
so how did you come to the conclusion that God is revealing all those things through this story? Does it say that in there?
That is the historical teaching.
So no, it doesn't say that in
Christ
the
is
book.
telling.
How is that the historical teaching?
Mm-hmm.
So Christ didn't come to fulfill the law, to perfect the law.
We're not Christians.
Oh, he
We're
did-
asking you.
are you guys
Well,
doing
John,
an
knows-
internal?
John knows what I'm
external?
talking about. So he
Are you
knows
guys-
that Christ literally says this in Matthew, Luke, and John.
Yeah,
And
but I
law.
also know that Jesus said that not one jot or tittle will be erased from the law until the new heaven and earth come. So let me ask you this: Has
Exactly.
the new heaven and earth come?
It was supposed to be within one generation, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually.
It's already been perfected. It's revealing the perfection of Christ. It is not about.
Oh, so the new earth and the new heaven
so
have
you
come.
have you have a Hebrew roots hermeneutic. So you're with the heretical group that believes that we still uphold the Mosaic law. So is that what you're saying, John? Is your argument is that you take a Hebrew roots hermeneutic? Okay, the Hebrew roots
of the Newer
hermeneutic.
Testament and the Hebrew of the older of the Hebrew Testament.
Yeah,
of the Hebrew
and,
Bible.
and tell me the Christian traditions that we still uphold the Mosaic law. When, as I said, the Council of Jerusalem, the first council, Christ annihilated the distinction between Jew and Gentile. We don't uphold the Mosaic law, but the law in its essence is fulfilled through the revelation. It's never changed.
Right.
The
That
moral law has
sounds
never
like
changed.
later church fathers that dictated that, and not anything that Jesus directly said.
It's in Scripture. It's in the epistles. What are you talking about?
So
It's in the
where?
New Testament, and we're not even sola scriptura Protestant, so it doesn't
Where?
matter.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're critiquing. I don't know.
No, no,
Again,
okay, I
if
get it
it's
that you're
external
not
or
gonna-
internal.
on
You haven't
hermeneutics.
Hold on.
given us
Go
any
ahead,
kind of
John.
like
Obfuscation of the
Go ahead.
fact that they can actually
Or-
perform the function of the debate.
I'm still waiting on one named immoral B behavior.
Nope.
One
immoral
one
behavior.
act B does that's immoral, please.
One act that bees
A
do,
bee.
one immoral.
Why don't
Yeah.
we
I
point
don't
out-
know why that's
Flow
the
state.
judge. So like bees have been known to attack intruders as a social unit, and so like they recognize immoral actions that are committed against the hive. Just because they have a high social cohesion doesn't detract from the fact that they still
Okay,
have
how did you
morality.
determine that a bee isn't merely reacting to stimuli, but they're evaluating moral transgressions, sir?
I'm not saying that they perceive it as
Not-
moral transgressions.
Moral
I'm saying
behavior
that
you
doesn't
are-
always require.
Okay, so
cognitive
are you
dissonance.
transposing a human construct of morality onto bees and saying bees have moral behavior?
Why do you assume it's a
No,
human
I'm saying-
construct?
From your view, it's a human construct. That's your presupposition, duh.
This.
Duh head.
No. We're actually we're saying
How dare
that
you.
morality or moral actions, moral foundations are like foundations of social species, which are not just human
So they're
things.
socially constructive, therefore
Right.
relativistic. Therefore, you actually can't say. So, if you want to focus on the grape, if there's a civilization that says that's actually part of their cultural practices, you have no foundation or the point of this debate, grounding, to actually say that that's wrong. That's the whole.
Oh, you mean
point
like
of
the
this debate.
Israelites? They definitely were fine with grape.
All of your criticisms are things
No,
that your
show
system
us how you
doesn't
can
do better.
say-
It actually has a history of doing worse.
Okay, well,
It can't
why
be
don't we
worse
do
or
the-
better. It can't be worse or better under your view. Do you understand that?
They don't. They
It
clearly
can be
don't.
worse or better.
No.
No. There's
You
no
understand
standard
that.
for best, better, or
so
worse, right?
We're decoupled from this idea of pleasing a deistic God, like
Jay.
not deistic God,
finish.
but
Let him finish.
a God. We're decoupled from this idea of God and pleasing this God, and so we don't have to be dogmatically held to any one singular like moral foundation. But I would contend that Christians are also not held to that same that standard.
Okay, but
Can
the
I
point of
ask
the
you
debate
guys-
is grounding yours.
There's
They are, it just changes
relativistic
over
and
time.
subjective
Can I-
foundations in Christianity.
Can I ask you just a more fundamental question, which I thought was covered in the opening for David Patrick Harry did a great job there, is what do you guys think grounding means?
Here, I got it pulled up right here.
We literally defined it for you.
The act
No, you
method or
didn't. I
process
did.
of laying a groundwork or a foundation.
Okay, and what does that mean philosophically? For example, in a formal debate, what does that mean? Grounding or justifying a claim?
We
Yeah,
can.
I mean,
you can ground it in anything.
No, you
For the,
can't.
John,
definition.
you go
Hold on.
ahead.
I've already said you could ground it in culture. I ground mine in negative rights. You could ground it in religion. It could be grounded in lots of
In
different things.
epistemology, grounding it doesn't mean the same as laying a foundation, right? The first thing you highlighted and read. Okay, John, why don't you give it a shot? What do you think philosophically is meant when we say, "Can you ground morality"? What do you think is meant?
Philosophically, I feel like what you mean is, can we ground our morality? Can we establish our morality in some kind of foundation that would be used to dictate or come to moral conclusions?
That's pretty close.
Okay, that's
I mean,
better.
how does
You've
how
got
does
the
that- how does that-
universality aspect of that, because the whole point of this
No,
debate.
because
that
I
if
don't
you
think
guys-
that
hold on,
morality is
Let me
universal.
finish. Let me finish.
Um,
The whole point of a formal debate is objective truth claims that can be defended through the laws of logic. And so if you are saying that morality is a social construction, you are saying that it's relativistic. So as Flow State has highlighted that he can ground it in anything, John has said that it's his own subjective preferences. This is actually a conceding of grounding, because if that's only your preferences, then our Christian preferences are just as equal to yours.
No,
because the
because-
point is, you guys cannot critique
Here-
another moral system as less than yours.
Here, we
The
can shift.
the
We can,
objective truth here is the definition of the word grounding. You're trying to
Okay.
change that into something that it's not.
okay, forget if you don't want to get the understanding of grounding, give an account for morality, how you bind it to a being. That's absolute. Do you guys agree that if you're going to argue morality, does that necessitate free will? Because I think under a Christian paradigm, we can actually make an account for free will, how we have free will, why we have free will, what is our duties given our free will, given free will, what is missing the mark from our view, what is aligning ourselves with morality. From your view, do you guys believe in free will or not?
Hold on, this sounds like a different debate. Are you conceding
It's
the
not.
morality one? Or are we moving on to free will?
No, nice try. Morality, I asked you a question. Does morality necessitate free will, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so it is about the debate then.
Okay.
don't
If
believe in
you
free
say it
will.
is, I was just asking where you're taking it.
So John says he doesn't believe in free will. From that view, is it possible for anyone, let's say even in your inverted account of Christian events in the Bible, isn't it from your view that they couldn't have done otherwise anyway? All of the worst things?
I mean, on a naturalistic perspective of the cultures at that time, no. I think that they operated in the ways that they saw fit to operate.
Okay, so if you say don't do that, again, stick to parenting. When you tell your kid don't do something, from their view, if they hold your system of epistemology, and morality, they could say to daddy, I was determined to, you can't punish me, I was determined to do that, right?
No.
Why couldn't they say that? That's consistent with your worldview.
Yep.
They would still be subject to the real world repercussions of their actions. But if I can,
Yeah, you want to get off this
highlight-
real
Yeah,
quick.
he wants to. He just
Go ahead.
No.
Hold
This
on,
is
go
still
ahead.
on.
I can.
Go ahead. Hold on.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John, and then you guys. can-
Eject button in the F-18.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, so basically, as far as like this whole topic of like, you know, proposing this whole idea to like a child or whatnot, I kind of feel like under y'all's paradigm, you're saying that God is not omnipotent, like he's not all powerful, but yet at the same time, he can prescribe very minute things and expect the Israelites to adhere to them and even punish them when they don't adhere to those things. Like, for instance, the commands about their dietary laws, or commands about, you know, what clothes to wear, or other commands that are very minute and very specific to like what God wants. So if God wanted them not to rape women, rape children, take chattel slaves, or implement sexual slavery, if he did not want those things to happen, all he had to do was prescribe those things and then punish the Israelites when they did not follow his prescriptions.
Do you know that that's an argument from personal incredulity fallacy?
No, that's not. How's that
No,
personal
Because
incredulity?
all you're saying is, if God was all powerful, how he not do stuff I think he do?
No, it's not at all. It's saying,
It
why
is. It's
would
literally
we
that.
have to take the long way there?
That's literally the argument.
No, it's not at all.
If God all powerful, why not he
Is
do
God's
things that
law
I would do if
fixed?
I were power? Yeah, literally.
Is God's law fixed?
What do you mean fixed? You mean fixed in place?
Is it unchanging? God's law is unchanging.
Yes.
So I assume that means that God's law has always been don't grape, right?
Of course.
So why did he have to take us through thousands of years of grape in order for us to
You
understand?
guys have yet to
don't
even
grape?
prove this idea that the Old Testament advances.
You guys
the
have yet to
Great.
establish a damn thing at
Don't
all.
You
Something
are.
That's actually
You are.
somewhat accurate. You could choose like polygamy or something like that.
Right. Take an
Oh,
example
we could
we
go
agree
with both
with.
polygamy and forced marriage if you wanted to.
You could go
and
with gender mutilation.
What the hell?
So look, again, we've already established the law being fixed and being delivered are two different things, correct? Even from our parental experience. Yes?
You're trying
Well,
to establish that.
no.
I disagree with it. I don't
I've already
think
established it. Your
No, you
opponent,
haven't
you're sorry.
established- You're making.
No,
the
I keep
claim.
calling you your opponent because you guys
Why-
contradict each
no,
other.
If God is all powerful, why can't he explain don't grape?
He
as simply
can.
as
He
don't
can. That's
grape?
not an argument. Why can't he? Isn't an argument, bro. If God was all powerful, Flow State, why can't he
What
make
I'm
it so
saying
we
is that
don't
your
need to? Hold
morality
on,
is not
hold on,
fixed.
dude.
Hold on,
If
John, hold
God's
on.
so powerful, why can't he make us breathe underwater?
Your morality is subjective and it changes over time.
Does it?
Yes.
Okay. Who's the subject?
What
Do you
do
know
mean?
rape is condemned even in the Torah?
Where?
No, they don't. They don't.
Okay, they don't.
have no
Just
idea.
say you don't. Okay. Yeah. So
Oh, I asked
yeah,
where.
what's the title of the
Show
debate?
me where.
What's
No,
the
you're
title?
saying-
Of
you
the debate?
made the claim, so show me where.
I'm not going to look it up right now, but I'll look it up in a second.
Oh, fuck me.
No.
Well,
If you're
We
interested, I'll look
provided
it up.
Bible
But
verses when you asked for them.
I'm just demonstrating to you that even your shitty appeals to scripture that you guys try to do, right, are valid from your perspective, yet you don't even have a normative authority to interpret scripture.
We're talking about
Oh
your
no,
morality.
I do. I absolutely do.
What's your-
So I've
Oh,
got
what is
Dr.
it?
Joshua Bowen on chattel slavery. I've
Joshua.
got
Hold on.
Dr. Jennifer
Let him
Bird
finish.
on marriage
Let him
in the
finish.
Bible. I've got Mark Kampberg on the
Oh,
forced
okay.
sexual
Oh, so this is
enslavement
appeal
of
to
women.
authority?
They're the normative
No, it's not an
authority.
appeal to authority. You're talking about how I've got shitty shitty
Yeah, it's relativistic.
analysis
It's your,
of it,
it's your
and
interpretation.
I based my analysis.
interpretation.
Hold on,
Yeah.
David.
That's his
I based my
it's his
analysis
morality.
on
He's behaving morally by
scholars, on
understanding it.
scholarly
You guys are
interpretations
now
of
talking to
scripture.
each other.
Okay.
And so I
Let John
am
finish.
providing you.
Let John finish, please. And then
I
12.
am providing you with what I feel is the best interpretation and the most faithful interpretation to the cultural aspects of the Israelite people, as well as in the Roman period for the Newer Testament. So, like, I'm providing you with actual scholarship on this. I can quote you exactly where all of this says. Like, did you know that in the Jewish culture, it was perfectly fine for a father to sell their 12-year-old daughter into sexual slavery or marriage, as y'all would prefer to say.
So we're supposed to take your hermeneutics because of your fifis?
Yeah.
Because the way that Johnny Boy
No,
feels?
not my fifis. No,
Yeah,
no,
that's
not
how
my
I'm
fifis.
telling you how I feel. That's literally what you just said.
Let
No,
John
right.
find.
This is my estimation of the scholarship, what I've read about the scholarship, what has personally convinced me. So it's not about my feelings about it. It's not because
convince,
it's not like I
convince
want
you.
these things to be true because I feel like they are
okay,
true.
great. So
it's
I
because
could
they
say,
make solid arguments. It's because they make solid arguments using scripture, using the original Hebrew languages, using the original Greek languages that
They know
they
that.
are
They're
written.
just trying to bait you into getting pissed
okay,
off.
so let me hear. I'm going to give you.
Let me go ahead and reset the panel. Everybody take a deep breath, please. There's about 1,400 of you watching between the channels. Super excited for everybody. Please do your job on your end. Like, subscribe, share. You know you like your people up here. You're excited for it. Let's give everybody a shout out. Jimbob, please continue.
I was going to say, it sounds like you said you appealed to Joshua and Sally and Barbara and all those guys, right, who studied, and that you're convinced, right? And I could just as well say, well, I'm actually convinced by the church fathers and the oral and practical the practical liturgical practice of the Orthodox Church, as well as the authority in the matter pre-canon, post-canon. I actually appeal to 2,000 years plus. You appeal to what? This generation of little Joshua Bowen studying his little heart out?
What if your
I'm
priest told you to do
unconvinced.
something? What if your priest told you to do something that you considered immoral? Would you follow their orders, or would you make your own decision?
Considered immoral?
Follow God and tradition.
Yeah, if he contradicted the faith, you would be able to see it.
But the faith includes the hierarchy of leadership, right?
No, it's not like that.
We don't believe priests are infallible.
No, you don't say just do whatever the priest says, right? And that's what's
what do you
good.
reference it against? What do you check the priest against?
The tradition itself.
The tradition itself. It's older than the priest.
Yeah.
The priest. By the way, do you know that a
So
priest,
it's your own personal interpretation of what they say.
No, it's actually
You have
based on the
multiple
passing
options
down
to
of
choose from.
knowledge.
It's like, do I like mom? Do I like dad? Who will give me what I want? I got the
well,
Bible.
look.
I got tradition. I got this priest.
Look, do you understand that when someone goes to like seminary and becomes a priest, they don't go in with this like, I can't wait to interpret scripture. I can't wait to see what I come up with, right? I wrote a new essay on the scripture. That's not actually what the faith is teaching. So even your hypothetical is mostly inconsistent. Now, if it's something superficial, like and trend-based, I don't know, like, wearing a mask or something, there's actually room to push back on what we call authority at that level, right? But as far as doctrine, dogma, sacraments, the practice itself, that supersedes and goes beyond and transcends all temporal activities, that is unchanging. So even your hypothetical assumes that like we're a part of some authority where we just look up to the guy in the hat and he goes, "You do this now." That's not actually the practice. I know in your head it is because you're so anti-authoritative. Meanwhile, your own system necessitates a state.
Which takes precedence. If hypothetically, I know that you don't think this could ever be possible, but hypothetically, if a church leader comes into conflict with tradition or with scripture, which one is the controlling authority here?
Tradition.
Over the Bible.
Well, that is
tradition. That's the same thing.
Retarded.
How do you think the Bible is compiled?
Can I ask where in tradition does it say don't grape a child?
You are obsessed with children.
Dude, where does it say? Dude, do you understand this is a problem? Do you know that? I'm just going to show you the error in your reasoning. If something's not said, don't do this in the Bible, it doesn't follow that it condones it. Do you understand that basic level distinction?
There's a lot of prohibitive laws in the Bible. You'd think that some of these things could have been included.
You didn't get an answer.
So,
do you understand the distinction?
I didn't hear any kind of like actual justification. I just heard you dodging. Can you please state to me in the tradition where it says don't grape a child?
And this is from Mark.
Genesis 32, the rape of Dinah. There you go.
Do you understand that even if it didn't say that?
What?
32.
Yeah.
Genesis 32, the rape of Dinah.
Do you understand that
God
logically
condemns rape.
speaking, John, that you understand logically speaking, even if that scripture didn't exist that you can reference, it doesn't follow that it's condoned? Do you understand that? That's like saying, that's like saying, do you know your scripture doesn't say specifically to murder a an 18-year-old bald albino with a chainsaw? Huh. Gotcha, Christians. You know how stupid that reasoning is?
I mean, it says
You should
all
be
sorts
ashamed of
of
yourself.
No, actually, but it does have God ordering the deaths of 42 children because they made fun of somebody with bald hair.
This is the perfect word of
Jimbob,
God.
if somebody
You
made
think
fun
it
of your
conveys these
shitty ass
things.
drawings,
Your
would that
hermeneutics is
mean
really
that they should
justifying your
die?
subjective morality. Again, you
No,
guys
but-
already
And
conceded
hold
the
on, I want to
entire
hear
debate.
John's question again, please.
You're just mad because you're balding. I mean, I can understand.
Did you say Genesis 32?
Personal attack. He
I'm not
feels personally
balding.
attacked by scripture.
Did you say Genesis 32?
32
I
through
don't.
34. The rape
Did
of
you say
Dinah.
Genesis 32 is
Through 34.
what? Oh, okay, so it's 32 all the way through 34.
To 34.
Yeah, I know it takes reading. I know that's not your strong suit.
But citing scripture that are pre-compiled, right, and misquoting them.
Yeah,
No,
have-
I
have
mean,
you
I
been
have.
writing
I've,
these
I've
are-
named
they're
off
not citing
several
scripture, don't
different
you agree,
scholars
Jimbob?
that I've extensively read tonight, so it's
You're a
not that I'm
TikToker,
afraid of
right?
reading.
You got
I'm
TikTok
just trying
all
to
over
find
you.
where it says "Don't rape a child."
I'm just finding where it says don't do a number of things that are possible and how that follows that we condone it if it doesn't say it.
Can
This
I
is
ask the
perfect work of
question?
God. You'd think that you
Right.
could get more out of it.
Can I ask the question? And this one is actually because I'm curious now. If it doesn't say not to do it, is there a way that it has a positive, maybe not necessarily to not do it, but like maybe how you would treat how you would treat somebody or something on the positive end? Jimbob and David, that's where my question comes in. If you have a thought on that.
She feels like she gets to help you guys.
Can you reframe the
so
question? I don't
instead
understand
of
the
saying, instead of in the Bible, do not do something, is there something that would provoke, like, do something instead that would kind of categorize and knock those out?
Love your neighbor as yourself. Does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the
Correct.
general basis for
Along those
morality
lines.
is that the others are made in your image of, in their image of God, and so are you. And these acts against others are an act against yourself. So a grape, right? If John's upset that very specific kind of activities that have recently been on his mind aren't in the Bible, and he's saying Christianity condones it, it's still not logically a follow. If something's not explicitly in the Bible to not do, it doesn't follow that doing that thing is condoned. Do you understand that?
It's
I
not
just
forbidden.
wanted that question
What I'm
answered so we can move on from it.
Sure, that's
not
fine.
what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that God directly condones and commands the raping of women, and
Then
keep
how,
saying
do-
that.
we
how
would
do you
need.
explain Genesis 34, verse 2? That's clearly condemned.
I mean, I'm reading it right now, and this really just comes across as like
It comes across as your that's your hermeneutical system. It comes across.
No. I'm just saying, just reading it.
No,
Let me make sure I
Can you
got
read it out loud?
Yeah. Well, 1 second. Hold on. I'm making sure I have
I'm excited for
the
this.
best
Some public
version of the
reading.
Bible.
Because even if it does say not to grape other spots in the Bible,
It doesn't
Numbers,
say that.
For instance,
It's clearly
Numbers, you
condemning-
still haven't justified that's grape. What are you talking about, dude?
I'm
you're,
sorry.
you're
like,
playing dumb. You and I, we all know what the point
We
of
all know
teaching
what?
the female virgins is. We all know
What?
it. It's not.
What? We all
You
know
don't
it
need
is your
the word
it's your
grape.
let
epistemic
Let
standards.
Flo, hold on. Let Flo finish.
What?
Let
Look,
Flo
let me
finish.
try. We all know that you're wrong. See?
You don't need the word literally spelled out for you in order to understand what the message is. Do you?
Okay. No, but you would need some sort of authority and
because
interpretation.
You extrapolated so many things out of the sacrifice story with.
Okay,
Isaac.
so, cool. Is that admissible in court? Let's say is Numbers
Is this
30.
court?
Hold on.
We're not in court.
Hold on. Is Numbers 31 admissible in court to
Are we
say
in
that
court?
someone? I'm asking you, based on your standard, if you think it's worthy of an interpretation, you would be confident to placing it in court and saying, "This guy did it. Look what he wrote." Would you use that in
because
court?
This isn't.
No,
court.
I didn't think so. Get
This
out
is
of
a court
town.
public
Get out of
opinion.
here.
I can say something, and I know
Get
you guys
out.
understand it. I know the audience understands it.
Why wouldn't it
Oh,
be
if things don't have
useful?
to be spelled out, why would that be applying to us too? Where you say that we have to find a specific verse that's worded the way that you want. The same thing can be true for our argument. Raping people, children, anybody doesn't have to be explicitly spelled out when we read Genesis 34:2. when Dina is raped, and we can clearly see through that narrative that it's condemned by God. So what's your point? You just defeated the argument that your buddy John has been trying to make for the last 30 minutes.
By the way, that activity is totally permissible under your moral system.
You keep saying that. Neither of us agree with it.
Is it wrong? Cool. Why is it wrong? Why is it wrong?
Jimbob, let Flo finish. Let Flo finish. Flo.
No, it's already established as permissible under yours. Your scriptures has instances of God telling people to slaughter children, right? Yes.
And why is slaughtering children wrong? Still waiting.
This is exactly.
No, we're waiting.
I ground my morality in humanism, and humanism would dictate that killing a child is wrong.
Why?
Why? Because we place the health and wealth. We place the health and welfare of our fellow human beings above others. Not others, but like above all.
The health and welfare above all. Okay. That's your standard? Health and welfare above all?
I'll ground mine in negative rights. Regardless, like I said, I could ground it in applesauce and it would still be solider than you.
Hey, John.
Yeah, and John, we don't have to, Flow State and I do not have to agree on the foundation of morality in order for us to be able to ground morality without God.
That demonstrates that there's no objective
There's
standard.
no grounding. It's like literally.
You don't have an objective grounding. You don't meet your own requirements.
Hey, John, I had a question for John because he said health and well-being. Is it possible to obtain a high let's say a optimized well-being by way of doing horrific things to certain people? Is it possible
under humanism? No,
it's not possible. Let's say like Malthusianism. Is it possible under your view, if it was empirically convincing to you that annihilating 4 billion people, right, would actually serve for the best possible well-being, the peak of well-being at a sustainable level for the remaining humans? Wouldn't that be a moral thing to do?
I would disagree with that.
No, but you don't disagree because it's an entailment of your view because you.
No. I'm sitting here literally telling you, Jimbob, that I do not agree with that, and that violates my moral foundation.
That is your moral foundation, dude.
That is your moral foundation.
No. I'm telling you, like you're trying to box me. Hold on. You're trying to box me into this whole like absolute moral foundation. My moral foundation is subjective, so it can change. But I'm telling you right now, that particular hypothetical.
So how can you say
my moral foundation would brand that as abhorrent?
How can you say somebody's wrong if your foundation is constantly changing?
Because just because my moral foundation changes doesn't mean that I can't come to moral conclusions.
So it's all based on your fifis and your preferences at whatever given point.
By the way,
it kind of seems like y'all's moral conclusions are based on your fifis about scripture.
No.
What if you were determined to
someone else's fifis about?
What if you were? But godless, under your view, I thought everybody's behavior is determined anyway. So what if tomorrow you woke up and you were just determined to think depopulation was the right answer?
I mean, I don't see how that applies to grounding my morality.
They really rather catch us in a
the point is, if determinism is true and you take a physicalist approach that everything's a natural mechanism unfolding, anybody's account for morality, including their actions, would just be determined by biologically and chemically, right? They would just be unfolding. From that view, you couldn't say an event that unfolded that was completely caused by the laws of physics and nature could be immoral. It's just an event in the world, no different than a waterfall. How would you distinguish?
You have the same issue if God created everything and knew everything before it happened.
No, they don't.
I would say natural events are amoral, and they do not have, because nature is amoral, then it has no consideration for the interactions between humans.
Okay, let me give it back to you. You think that natural events are amoral. Are thoughts, propositions, and moral evaluations biological in nature?
I think that they're emergent from our biology.
Are they events in nature?
Are they events in nature? Not in the same way that we're talking about natural events.
Special pleading. Cool. So what is it
No, I'm not specially pleading because
special pleading as well.
Look, I'll ask you a question, Godless. If natural, you just said premise one, natural events, right, are amoral. Evaluations and moral judgments are biologically natural events, but they're not the same kind. Now, under your view, you're gonna
Right.
have to,
Can I clarify something here?
No, let me ask you a question. You can clarify after.
Bob finish and then clarify.
How do you make a meaningful distinction categorically between natural events in the world that all operate according to the same laws of physics and chemistry and et cetera, and your moral evaluations, which are under the same law? What's distinct about a moral evaluation that makes it not in the same exact arena as every other effective physics in the world?
Well, they're different because we have a consciousness that's an emergent property of a complex central nervous system.
So you have another natural event that I'm going to ask the same question, right? So saying what it is again doesn't make a meaningful distinction. Now I ask you, a natural occurring event called emergent property, called consciousness, which is some sort of vapor on top of the brain. What is it about that event in nature that makes it morally apt and truth apt, and the other events in nature are not? Please.
Well, so it's not a vapor. For one, that's what you believe as far as the soul goes. Number two, I would say that there's no mind controlling the natural events that occur like in reality. I would say that a consciousness is a product of a complex central nervous system, and therefore we are in control of our experiences and everything like that. Our consciousness is how we perceive and interact with reality. I can't make a natural disaster occur, and I don't think that there's any kind of consciousness behind.
It sounds like your own thinking is a natural disaster, and I agree. The point is, you haven't answered the question. What is it categorically different? You said, well, these things are different because I have a mind. A mind, under your view, is caused by physics and chemistry, the same way other things like natural disasters are caused by similar laws. Now, the question, categorically speaking, is you grant yourself that the only effective physics and event in natural reality that is moral or immoral, is true or not true, is a proposition. It's literally the only thing in nature that you appeal to that doesn't follow the same exact rules and fall in the same categories of the rest of the natural world. You grant yourself supernaturalism. It's called the mind and evaluation. Under your own view, John, evaluations are determined effects of physics caused by a machine you call the brain. And from that view, there's no right answer or wrong answer. It's literally the effect of an event happening.
Right. The knowability of the
evaluation
is lost to you, buddy.
Yeah, it's gone. Have a beer. Get a beer.
I didn't follow that at all. You're saying that since we have a mind, right? You're granting that
mind. Hold on.
Let Flo finish, please. Let Flo finish.
What about that question so far is wrong?
Well, I'm just clarifying terms, but do you believe it's an emergent property as your partner? That's all I want to know is what you consider a mind.
Well, I'm asking you the question now, so you can wait on that one. Okay. So are you saying that because we have a mind and that's intangible, that it therefore necessitates God or the Bible somehow, or religion?
What? No, it removes the possibility of materialism, which is why, Taylor, I know that you don't really hold to a strict materialist, physicalist view, but that's why you guys are incompatible as debate partners. Because
we're absolutely compatible.
No, I'm going to tell you why. Because morality requires, and you admitted this, free will. But under your partner's view, there is no free will. There's just the unfolding of a mechanism.
Under your view, there should not be free will either, except that you have special pleadings. You try to make secondary causes or whatever. If God's not in charge of everything, as if there's some subset of behavior that God isn't in charge of. He just knows what will happen before it does.
What's the argument? Please tell me the argument with premises that states that an all-knowing God removes the possibility of free will, please. 2 premises and a conclusion, please.
If he knows what's going to happen before it happens, that means it's predetermined.
What? If he knows what's going to happen before it happens, it's determined?
It's predetermined, yes. He has foreknowledge of it.
How does that remove our ability to choose what's going to happen?
If something is predetermined, you don't have any choice in the matter.
So, okay, so you're saying God can't removes our ability to choose in the temporal.
If he knows everything before it happens, then yes, he has removed your ability to make it something other than what he knows will happen.
And so you're making an argument against the entirety of Christian theology of being made in the image of God and having free will. God has.
Well, I don't know if you want to interpret it that way. I guess that you can, but that's not what I was doing. I was
let me ask
you guys having free will.
Right. Let me ask this: if God knows the future, right? Like God is omniscient; He knows everything. Correct?
Of course, by definition.
Okay, does God know what choice you're going to make?
In some sense.
In
At the
some
same
sense?
time, we still
What
have
sense is he confused in?
we still have free will, in which that's why we're judged by sin. It gets back to the whole point of morality. And if you disagree with free will,
so
then
God
there's
doesn't know what you're going to
finish,
choose.
big guy. Let me finish. So the whole point.
Sorry,
of
there's a
morality,
lag on my
there
end.
he goes
so
again.
sorry.
Man, your mouth just keeps moving. The whole point of morality is something can only be moral or immoral if we have free will to choose. So you've already conceded that there isn't free will in a deterministic, materialistic world. Therefore, you really can't even make a moral argument because you don't have free will to choose. Flow state trying to argue that God's omniscience is somehow limiting our free will is totally ridiculous and violates the
limit your free
entire
will.
history of Christian theology.
And also, to claim that you are responsible for your sins, even though you are as God created you to be, is damn near blasphemous. If I were religious.
That's a straw man.
Hold on. My question hasn't been answered yet at all. So I was just trying to lay the groundwork here. Like, you think that God is omniscient, but at the same time, God doesn't know what you will choose because you have free will?
Do what?
So I asked, does God know what you're going to choose?
So this has to, again, deals with a difficult understanding that God is outside history. He's outside space and time. So he already understands the beginning of the end of entire creation. So every decision that I've already made is already seen. If you're outside time and space, you've already seen the decisions that are made.
So he knows what decision you're going to make.
My free will
but we're inside of it.
Exactly, and that's why we have free will.
Secondary cause. That's a secondary cause.
Right. Okay. So
I wasn't helping you.
You just did because you're totally ignorant.
We're inside space and time. We operate according to space and time. So if he knows what we're going to do within space and time, it's fixed here.
No, it's not fixed. We have free will.
Sort of like God's law didn't change either, right?
Okay,
like,
so
you guys can't just redefine words.
Do you understand that if you're arguing that we don't have free will under Christianity, and you also argue you don't have free will under your view, you don't have access to the knowledge anyway.
You do under my view.
How is it you have free will under your view?
Because I don't think that God has prescripted my life.
Do you know that knowing and causing are two different things, though?
He doesn't.
John?
He has no idea.
I do understand that knowing and causing are two different things.
Secondary causes?
If you know the outcome, that means that it is.
I'm not going to answer a question.
What are secondary causes?
I asked John, is there a difference between knowledge and
I'm not answering your question.
Why?
Because y'all still have not answered my question. I asked you a question first. I've tried to do my best to answer your questions when you pose them to me.
Dude, I'm answering your question because I'm okay. Forget answering questioning you. Sorry.
Yeah, you don't have
knowledge,
to answer Jimbob because he doesn't answer ours.
Right, but not knowing something.
No. I'm just trying to get an answer to my question. Yes or no? Does God know your decisions, and is he omniscient?
Yes, and knowing isn't causing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying that God causes it. I'm just asking you if he knows what decision you're going to make.
You granted free will.
That. Yes, emphatically.
There's only two options.
No.
There's only two options. There's only two options, dude. Either God causes our choices because he already knows them and it's determined, or God knows and we have some cause in the matter. So if you understand the distinction that knowing isn't causing, right?
I haven't even made my argument yet. Like you're trying to jump ahead.
Argument for the grounding of morality either.
No, that's neither here nor there. So my point. So if God knows what decision you're going to make, before you make the decision, is there a chance that you can change that and prove God wrong?
That's a category error. Like
no,
Dave Patrick
How's
said.
that a category error?
Because
if you say that you have free will, then you can change. You can change your decision at a whim, right?
You're asserting that, but you're assuming God's existence, his knowledge, is somehow inside our temporal space-time stage, right?
No, we're just assuming that we are.
You're saying God has knowledge, and he's testing us to see if we can go against his knowledge of what's going to happen. The question isn't whether or not he knows. Again, the distinction is whether or not knowledge is equal to cause. Is knowledge equal to cause?
It's not equal to cause, but
Great.
it does rely
Discussion
on
over.
Let him
knowledge
answer.
cannot be had if the end is variable.
Knowledge-
A prerequisite is a fixed outcome. It's not causal, but it is a prerequisite to knowing the end.
Again,
You can't know how the movie's going to end if the movie hasn't been established.
But if you're outside space and time, you can.
We're
Right.
not.
Exactly.
It
We
is.
have free will. Thank you.
We're
That's
within
fine.
it.
Thank you. Again, you just
within it.
explained our category difference here, and you're still not understanding.
So
we got to move.
what you're
to the
saying
next
is literally
subject.
no
This is a circle.
amount of logic applies to God. You can say literally anything, and God's outside of space and time and understanding. You cannot understand God.
Of course we
You
can.
have you literally just gave yourself a pass to have no foundation for anything at all.
Wait, you're saying God exists outside? God's not constrained by time, space, and matter. Therefore, we can't know anything about God. Is that your argument?
That means that you could say anything.
I asked you, is your argument?
God, I'm answering it. I'm
Let him
answering
answer.
it. By not holding God to any sort of standard of logic, even within
standard.
itself.
Let him
Even
answer,
not being
Jimbob.
self-contradicting,
Be nice.
you basically exempt yourself from any sort of standard at all. God could say literally anything. He could say that he's one God and three gods at the same time, which he does.
Interesting.
And you're good with
so,
that.
So wait a second. You're saying God? It only makes sense that God exists the way he does if he's subject to another God called other laws, like logic or something. Is that what you're saying?
If we are to understand God, which I assume that's the purpose of religion, right? To understand God.
To know God and participate.
To
with
know
God.
God, right? Do you feel like you know him better, knowing that he's outside space and time and all that stuff? So he doesn't have to make sense.
Well, I mean, I think it's a logical necessity that God isn't bound by creation because we have a creation-creator distinction. If you don't have a creator-creation distinction, by the way, you guys aren't theists, but if we were arguing against theists and you guys said the creation is God, this would be incoherent. So we understand God through revelation, but also through our faculties. For you to appeal to free will and you not to, godless engineer, for you, Taylor, to appeal to free will means there's a being, there's a personhood there that's making choices that's not identical to your mechanism unfolding, right? Your body doesn't fully control your choices, right? That's your view, Taylor, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that means there's a being that's not identical to the mechanism. Now you've necessitated something supernatural in your view, or metaphysical, immaterial, let's say, so we don't trigger, right, people who don't like the word supernatural. Now, just like morality, by the way, morality doesn't fit either of your paradigms. There's, like I said, I asked John, if his kid asked where is morality, from his empirical dogmatic perspective, he can't tell you. He can't
That's
tell
a straw
us
man.
where.
That's a straw man right there.
What are you talking about? It's consistent with his paradigm. What are you talking about? It's a
That
straw man.
what
It's
that logic
completely
is
consistent.
tangible, or that morality is tangible.
An empiricist, a naturalist, has no justification to believe things that exist. Believe things exist if they can't be measured empirically.
Can you show me your sex drive?
What are you talking about?
It's a comparable biological instinct.
A sex drive?
Yeah, your sex drive is
No,
is
I don't take a
comparable.
physicalist. I don't take a physicalist standard, dude. Do you understand what internal critique is?
He doesn't.
I do.
Either.
I do.
I'm not arguing from my paradigm.
You're trying to carry this straw man through.
Taylor, I accept metaphysical and immaterial concepts have a different ontology than a tree. Your friend, Godless here, doesn't. I'm saying to even argue morality from Godless's position is already outside of his paradigm.
Yep.
You can't find morality as a thing.
I think morality is an emergent property of a complex central nervous system.
Right, which is relativistic because that means it's evolutionary based, and the precepts for survivability are different amongst different groups and based on the environments they inhabit. For example, lying could be something that would include the survivability of a certain group, though I suppose you would say that continually lying is actually immoral. So the entire basis, again, for your grounding, you've lost the debate. It's subjective and it's relativistic.
Do all groups have the same emergent?
Yours is absolutely changing and subjective.
Do all the John, just from your view, are all emergent properties called morality like the same I don't know what you would call it, because you'd have to reduce it to physical, right? Or you're not reducing it to physical.
Can you guys try to establish again how your
Dude, I'm
morality is
asking
not
him a
subjective?
question.
Hold on,
Theistic.
let
I want to
John
know
answer the
godless.
question.
This is a good faith question for godless. It's not a gotcha. I want to know, when you say emergent property, morality is an emergent property. Do you think all concepts that aren't identical to matter are emergent properties, like mind itself? Do you think a mind is an emergent property of the brain, or is it identical to the brain?
I think it's an emergent property of the brain. And I don't think that any of your questions are in good faith, like whatsoever.
And
That's
they're not
fine. I don't
relevant.
care
They're
what you
not
think.
relevant to grounding morality either.
They are relevant. He just said morality is an emergent property. I want to see where else he's categorizing morality, because if truth is an emergent property and making a statement about morality, which this debate is about,
Right.
reduces truth claims to emergent property, everything DPH just said completely annihilates godless engineers paradigm. Why? Because it's all relativistic, because each mechanism called a human being with a different brain produces a different emergent property. That means different Oprah Winfrey truths. Game over.
You have different
You get it.
Stop.
You are.
Hold on. Flow State, you started talking first, then John, and then David, if you had something to add, that's fine.
So the Ortho Bros are sitting here trying to claim that their morality is unchanging and objective, but it's absolutely neither of them. Neither of them. Could you please
Full
establish
assertion.
how it meets the definition of either of those words without changing the definition of the word?
If we're using the term morality, there's no use in even using the term morality if it's not referring to a law based on how we ought to behave. If it's the case that what you're referring to as morality is merely a bunch of preferences that change over time, just to use the word preferences, then you're consistent.
We can use your definition of morality that you used at the beginning, which is a standard of right and wrong behaviors.
Objective. You
Well,
guys
I
have
want to
already.
hand it.
He
I
didn't.
wanna
He
hand it
did
back-
not say objective in his opening statement.
I want to hand it back to John.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't listening to anything they were saying.
That's okay. If you started
Good
speaking
debater.
earlier, so I wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to kick back in.
Tell us
Yeah, I
about
mean, I don't
CDD.
have anything to say. They seem to. It seems to me like they want to force this whole absolute or objective sort of standpoint onto my subjective moral foundation, but I don't even think they have the objective or absolute moral foundation they claim to have. So
They
Even-
don't.
it just
They for sure don't.
seems like a giant pissing contest at this point. to me.
Even look, the title of the debate is "Can we ground morality with God?" Let's say we
Without-
didn't ground
without
morality
God.
without God. Let's say we didn't. The question still stands: can you ground morality without God?
Yes, it's grounded
Yes.
in negative
Right.
rights.
Negative rights.
And
Let's get into
I
that.
ground it differently than he does.
First
Great.
of
What's
all,
the negative
hold
right?
on. We can go down that route. I can do that. But first, I want to hear you explain again how your morality is unchanging.
God is the standard for morality. He's a being, uncreated, unchanging. Why?
How do you?
listen?
How do I come into the knowledge of God, the being?
I'm going
First
to
of
give
all,
this
I already-
5 more minutes, and then we're going to go into
I
closing
already
statements.
established, and you agreed that if morality exists and it refers to the standard by which we ought and ought not do things, that it necessitates a being. Now, the only question from your view is it an
Necessitates two of
absolute
them.
being? Is it an absolute being or just two humans? In your view, it's two humans. If you'd like to take the approach that your grounding for morality is just two humans, please, let's by all means do it. But if God existed and he was the ultimate uncreated source of all morality, all goodness, and all badness and evil was a privation of that, right? Your argument falls apart against God, right? It doesn't work to argue against objective morality
Right,
if
but
it's
you
grounded in
can't
God.
demonstrate that is the case. You can't demonstrate God.
Yeah, we actually already did. We
We
made
could.
a transcendental
You
argument.
demonstrated
It's
God.
not-
I can demonstrate God through a logical argument. You want to hear it?
Exactly. We can use logic and demonstrate a logical, coherent argument, as we've already talked about. There's only two theories of truth: coherency, which is going to be. Are you
The
gonna let
fact
me
that
talk
I
too
can,
hard?
the fact that I'm
Too hard.
that there's people.
Easy.
The fact that we're even having this
Stop.
conversation
Go ahead,
demonstrates
Flo.
that you can't deny it.
Okay, listen. In this conversation about morality, are you not
Mhm.
assuming there's a truth to the matter?
Sure.
Okay.
That's
is the
a
truth of the matter?
metaphysical
Is the
concept.
truth of the matter absolute, metaphysical, immaterial?
Depends on what matter you're talking about. Truth is the
Is-
quality of a claim.
Okay, the quality of the claim, or qualities of the claim, if you say the quality of the claim is called true as opposed to false, is it absolutely the case that it's true?
They're so dumb. They're both
If something is,
Shut your wife up. She's not in this debate.
Okay, stop it. Stop it. If
don't get
Or
busty,
was
don't
that
get in your
a man? Or is
fifis.
that a man?
Come on out
Go
of
ahead.
your fifis.
I feel like I've tolerated
rude.
this long enough. I'm not going to tolerate that.
Rage quit. Dude, you're rude.
I'm not rage quitting. I'm not
we
rage
violate
quitting.
your
I'm just
subjective
not
morality?
allowing
Dumb, you little fuck.
all right, gentlemen, let's move into
I'm gonna
stop
let
it.
my wife talk shit, right? But I'm gonna be
Boys.
like you. It's fucking
Boys.
unbelievable, you little worm.
This message is sponsored in part by...
All right, shout out to everybody. We lost one. That was definitely a rage quit.
Definitely.
All right.
Victory.
We were so close to the end. So
Yeah, you
close to
blame
the
victory.
end.
Talk about rude. Talk about rude. Let your wife insult the guest on the panel that
I
agreed to
don't
do a
think that
debate
was
with this guy.
intentional.
I don't give a shit. He was talking to his wife multiple times throughout the debate. Okay. Of course, it's intentional.
All right, gentlemen. Flow State, since you're uneven now, if you want to go ahead and start with your closing statements.
Sure. For my closing statements, I think it's obvious here that I throttled the Ortho Bros. That they couldn't prove any of their claims that their morality is objective, that it's unchanging. In fact, despite insisting it was, the opposite is obvious. And as per the definition of morality and grounding, there's nothing necessitates religion nor God. We can see that through history, as we can see that logically. I yield.
Great. I'll go.
Damn!
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't realize.
I'll close.
I was just ready to bite.
No, go ahead, Jimbob.
David, if you want to let Jim,
Yeah, I
that's
want
fine.
Jimbob to go, and I'll close.
Yeah. So what we saw tonight is a demonstration, which DPH and I both knew ahead of time because we talked about it, that these two wouldn't even agree on their moral standards, demonstrating there is no grounding. Second of all, we knew ahead of time they wouldn't understand what grounding is. Grounding isn't just some assertion and latching your morality onto something subjective like an opinion or the trends of the times. Further, he just said morality, is not something that be grounded in God. There's nothing that necessitates God. To say such a claim is to assume absolute truth exists, which necessitates God, by the way. If this argument actually was allowed to spill over into truth, which I believe truth and morality are related, you can't argue morality without arguing truth. Both Slow State and his partner. And his partner's partner, they couldn't tell me what the absolute standard for truth is, let alone morality. Now, if their system, this is my closing statement. Is there any duct tape you have in your room? So if they held their standard against morality, against truth, it would fall apart, and that's the whole point of the debate. Objectively grounding something means you're attaching to something, or you're given an account for the existence of in something that's unchanging. That's always the case, right? That's always true. That's always fixed in that way. Flow State admitted that morality refers to ought claims about us. He admitted you can't get an ought claim from a rock or a tree. He said, well, it does necessitate beings, just two. So that's a majority, right? So any two people who decide something's moral, it's moral. Now, notice how if you use that system and you go back in time in the Bible, anything you think is abhorrent, shut up, dude. It's my closing statement.
Flow State, you know better. Come on now.
If that's true, there's nothing they can point to in the Bible, even if we granted their grotesque interpretation of things happening in the Bible. There's nothing they could say. Why? All you need is two or more people agreeing that grape is right, and it has to be right. Notice how I asked John, can something be immoral at 5 p.m. and immoral at 5:01? He said yes. That's the end of the debate. That means it's not grounded in anything but your thoughts that can change moment to moment to moment. Now, notice when I pushed the time limit further down and said, can it be 5:00 p.m. and X is immoral, but at 5:05 and 5 seconds it's changing? He has to say yes, right, from that standard. The point is, David, Patrick, Harry, and I have successfully demonstrated, mostly from us not even talking, by them talking, that their own standard falls apart, totally arbitrary, ever-changing, emergent property, changing from one plane to the next, majority rules. It doesn't matter. It's a free-for-all. If you can get people to agree with you that cutting off a head and dumping it down a pyramid is morally good, they have to agree that it is, given the times. Furthermore, and finally, that ultimately, any moral claims you have, including subjective morality, which doesn't make sense, just call it preferences, assumes a truth standard, an epistemic standard. If these guys even went into the pool with us on epistemology, it would have been even more bloody than it was today. So, God bless us for not taking out all the knives. With that, thanks for having me. I appreciate the debate. It's always fun, Flow State. I appreciate you too, guys.
David, to you.
So the premise of tonight's debate was grounding morality without God. This requires, as we said, universality, necessity, and authority. What we saw tonight was two individuals who didn't even know what was going on in the debate. They had no idea what the premise was all about, and they never even made an absolute objective claim. What they did was refer to their fifis and their preferences. They want to say that, is God subject to logic? We've already made a transcendental argument for categories like logic, the laws of language, number theory, all this different stuff are non-physical, which of course they abide by. And I'd be curious, we didn't have time because Big Boy already quit. Is 2 + 2 = 4? Is that always and eternally true? Now, from their own worldview of evolutionary naturalism, they would say, well, it is right now, but it could change in the future. We don't believe that. We believe that these metaphysical attributes, these transcendental objects, these are unchanging, and it requires then a transcendent entity to ground these. We did not come here to make an argument just for Christianity, though we are both Orthodox Christians, and that could certainly be a debate of another premise. What we did was make an argument for the existence of a God, a transcendent entity, which can be grounded these things in. So what we saw tonight was relativism, subjectivism, and inability to articulate any sort of objective standard. We saw a difference between the two secular moralities presented by Flow State and Godless Engineer. What we saw was an amateur Reddit tier attempt to talk about, if God real, why bad thing happened? This is embarrassing. We are adults. It should be a little bit more sophisticated than that. I thought at least they would refer to some of the more sophisticated atheistic arguments in the history of philosophy, but of course they're not well read enough to even understand that. This was a trouncing. This was an absolute bloodbath. Anybody that has a IQ above room temperature would be able to visually see that tonight. So we made an appeal to God through revelation, because if there isn't a transcendent entity, and again, this is not exclusive, revelation based in various religions is not exclusive to Christianity. Although, why is that necessary? Is because it appeals to something that enters into the moral or the material condition. As Jimbob highlighted, if you're just using naturalism and inductive methods, you can't create you can talk about what is, but you can't talk about what you ought to do. This is the human guillotine, who he himself was an atheist, but at least, unlike our opponents tonight, was philosophically consistent. So unfortunately, one of the debaters already rage quit. We conclusively demonstrated that there is no objective standard without some type of transcendent entity. Now, of course, for us, that is the Holy Trinity. What we saw tonight was an embarrassment, and I wish both Flow State and Godless Engineer the best. I wish them and their families the best, but I hope they do a little bit of soul searching and trying to at least be consistent with their own paradigms.
Fair enough. Thank you, gentlemen. And if you can, a question, are any of you choosing to stay on for open panel?
I'll stay on. Also, do you have all the super chats? You
I
can read
do.
those.
I'm going to read them.
Okay,
Yep, we're going to go
great.
through.
Yeah,
but
I'll
I just
stay on.
wanted to do a check-in. David, are you hanging around for a little bit as well?
Yeah, I can for a little bit.
Flow State?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so while we're going through the super chats, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drop the link. It should shoot out to everybody's, but if I'm not wrenched, it's not going to pull through. So I will also drop it in the private chat if you want to link it to your people. But I will say, if you guys go into dumpster fire mode, I will limit the flow. I will limit the seats to particulars if I need to, or we'll just play the booting game nonetheless. So feel free to start jumping backstage if you so choose. But yeah. Okay, so quick shout out to all the new members. Jess Margot, Terrence Clark over on somebody else's side, P. Fletch as well. And P. Fletch came in at the big 5. He said Alex Jones was right. Shout out to Order 88, new member, Lawyer Chick as well. And the Joe Mobley Show coming in with the big 10. He says, DPH, putting in work. David Hume's angle is exactly right. Can't derive an ought from an is. So how do we get it? How do we get from it is to it is good/bad? Good luck, DPH. Hold the line. You're welcome to respond if you so choose.
I appreciate you, Joe. God bless you. And unfortunately, our opponents didn't even know the strongest positions that they could have taken. So it is what it is. But thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate the kind words.
And Rachel Wilson stopping by with 2 super stickers as well. I believe that was over on Jimbob's end.
Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate you.
And
oops,
sorry.
I didn't know if you want to read all of them.
If you prefer to read them, I don't know whose end they're.
You're actually a better reader than me. Can you read them?
I can. I don't know whose ends they're coming in on.
Yeah, I know kind of generally. Yeah.
Yeah. So Richie Torres, MMA, coming in with the big 10. He says, given their atheistic presuppositions, why is debate even viable? How does it help us gather food or look for a mate? If anybody wants to respond, you're more than welcome
Flow
to.
state.
What was the question?
Given their atheistic presuppositions, why is debate even viable? How does it help us gather food or look for a mate?
Well, because obviously being familiar with what is and isn't truth is external of the individual, right? That's how we know what's true. It's independently verifiable by people. And I feel like the answer to this is obvious. We have to understand the world that we live in order to operate in it.
Fair enough. Limited Light coming in with the big 5. No, Jimmy Rob, tell us how your morality hasn't changed without the tired old. If commanded, commanded it must be good. Try something new.
Oh yeah, we don't take the Euthyphro dilemma because that's a false dilemma. So I would just reject the Euthyphro dilemma because it doesn't look at morality as united with God as a being. It looks at morality as a separate thing, like a set of propositions that are external to God. So I just reject the premise. I also don't know if that's facetious or not, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like it
parody.
Might have been.
It's hard to tell.
Jason Scholl coming with the big 5. He says JB and DPH, high-powered duo. These seculars have no clue.
Sounds like a cope.
And John Smith coming in with the big 10. I'm just happy Trump won and there's only 2 genders again. And we all know what a woman is again. That nonsense was confusing for the last 4 years. Trump 2028, y'all. Jonathan Dinan coming with the big 5. LOL, time to watch Jimbob.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was just me. Something to mindless engineer. Thank you, Jonathan. P. Fletch coming with the big 5. Jimbob needs to argue doing his Jordan Peterson voice.
I would do that. It would get old quick, but I would do it under the right circumstances.
Justin Henley coming in with the big 10. GE, I'm not playing your game. Even if I believe in morality you don't like, that's still grounded morality. Bad morals are still morals. Tubby. Flo, if you want to respond to that.
I feel like Justin just argued his point, but at him. I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. AC coming up with the big 20. The bride's taken would still be subject to Hebrew marriage age. You force child grape with deconstructionist sophism.
Yes.
That isn't consensus. Full of it.
Yeah, I would actually agree that the child grape position wasn't a good one. We could have had much stronger footing on killing the boys.
There. Blue Skittle comes in with the big 20. DPH cooking. Thank you,
Blue Skittle. God bless you, brother.
And Justin And Justin Henley coming in with the Big 10 left side, guys. If you don't believe God exists, any morals a culture comes up with is subjective, just like yours. They just have different source. All subjective, not grounded.
All are grounded in the same subjective, changing opinions of the people that exercise them. You can deny it all you want, Justin, but it is the way it is.
Can I just ask a follow-up question? I just want to see how truth itself isn't in the same predicament as morality. Like, if you said all morals are subjective and based on the person, what is your what grounds truth itself? Because truth isn't found as matter in reality either. It's another immaterial thing. So from your view, you reject truth as a construct, right? We reject all the blue-haired and all that nonsense, right? So that's why I wanted to get into that a little bit with you, and maybe it's another night if you want to save it, but maybe you can give a short answer. The question is, what's distinct about truth that your own assessment of morality doesn't apply to truth as something changing?
I mean, truth is sort of a binary that's externally verifiable, independent of the subjective person, right? Like, I can hold this up, and we all know that this is a lighter. If I told you that this was the keys to my car, we could all look at it independently and go, that's not the case. Morality is much more nuanced and subjective than that. It's how you ought to behave in a situation. And we know that life is complicated. There's a lot of grays in life.
Yeah, but before you said basically, or do you hold a position, just to clarify, that we ought to pursue truth as a moral claim?
I think that we ought to, it depends on what you mean by moral claims. I think that it is a moral thing, but my definition of what constitutes something being moral is going to be different than yours.
Okay.
Do you want to hold the rest of that follow-up
Sure.
and
Sorry,
we can go into
ahead.
open?
Mm-hmm.
Resto Reister Gaming, I like that name, comes with the big 5.
Right.
Get Jay Dyer on as the final boss of the Ortho Bros. I believe he was over in your chat too, Jimbob.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I saw him on somewhere in there. Santi's Bear Balls. What the fuck? Comes in with the big
His name's
5.
evolving.
Oh my God. In Christianity, which is greater, morals, also known as feelings, or commandments, also known as laws? And in a godless society, how do you determine how these two are established?
I think you incorrectly framed morals with parentheses feelings. Where the Christian view doesn't hold morals are feelings, so the question doesn't really make. You can pay again to Sarah here, another super chat, and phrase the question properly. Unless David Patrick Harry, you want to try to take a charitable approach at what you think he means, because I just reject the way he
I
phrased
assume what he's trying to say is somehow morals are feelings, that they're subjective, and commandments as laws are objective. But again, the moral law is written on the heart, and it's not a subjective relationship. And the progressive revelation of the law itself is the point of the Old and New Testament. So we would say the moral law of God is unchanging from its original foundation before the fall, and that is the standard.
And the commandments would be inextricably tied to the morals, like what we call morality, the grounding for morality. This would be derivative, right? The laws would be derivative of God himself as being. So I would say, Santis, if you're going to, I know you believe in God. I have some background knowledge of you. You can't really say morals are feelings without it all falling apart. So.
Fair enough. Resto Reister Gaming coming in with another big 5. RIP Atheist Slow Boys. Thank you,
Rick.
Resto. Oh my God, Resto. I'm sorry. I had Resto on my mind, apparently.
That's right. It's
Love
only
you, Resto.
Australian dollars, so they get Australian,
Fair enough. Fair enough. Jordan Flores comes in with a big 20. Why is Jimbob debating Comic-Con mascots?
Because that's the only debates I take.
Limited Light comes in with a big 5. At Justin Henry, you're just as subjective and ungrounded. Ooh, people are fighting in the chat now. I like that.
Damn.
Jonathan Dynan coming in with a big 5. Jimbob should do his RFK impression and tell GE he is being deported to Haiti for rotting his brain, plus causing his obesity with seed oils and soy.
I'll tell you what, I'll animate that for you if you go over to my channel. See you over there.
There you go. I don't even want to try saying this name. Coming in with the big 20. These two broskies are completely outclassed. What? Fair enough. AC coming up with a big 20. Godless Engineer, are you aware that the human tribute to Yahweh is servants of the
Levites.
Levites in the temple, not a sacrifice?
He
Thank you,
is
AC.
not. He has no
Yeah,
idea about anything.
He didn't know the distinction sacrifice from just killing or
And murder.
like all these things. Yeah.
Fair enough. Limited Light comes in with the big 2. Jimmy Rob, did Newton ground gravity? We don't have to
No,
answer that. It's only
he
2.
made that up.
Limited Light comes in with another 5. Jimmy Rob, the definition of function. Look up monster bearing in the development of mathematics.
I'll
Did I
check
read that
it
right?
out.
Yeah, that sounds really relevant to today's debate.
I mean, the only way I could make it relevant is when I attacked Godless Engineer's mechanical system for truth and morality, and he was left completely flabbergasted and silent for about it felt like 3 minutes. It was probably only 5 seconds, but function is relevant in Godless Engineer's system. But I'll look that up. Thanks.
Thank you. Oops, I lost my place. Sorry. Excuse me for just a moment. Oh, and then Juniper coming up with the big 2. Mr. E sent me, where am I? And I believe Crucible Crew dropped in over on your end, Jimbob. You had a
Thank you,
raid.
Crucible. Thank you, sir.
Rachel Wilson also gifted 5 memberships on Jimbob's side. Solomon comes in with the big 5. Matthew 18:6 debunks the pedo thing. There is no child rape prescripted at all in the Bible.
True.
Thank you, Solomon. Enslaved by Truth comes in the big 2. Turn off the music. No, I'm going to make it louder. And Fur Love Bond comes in with the big 2. Tiny incentive to actually moderate, not just host. I can respond to this one. This is my style. I don't construct your arguments for you. I'm not necessarily going to fix it, take your side, or call out fallacies and so on and so forth. I'm just here to be mom the mod. And let the boys know when it's time to settle down and make sure people are, in their place and have their time to talk. That is my style. Solomon coming with the big 5. Limited Light. Newton discovered a universal property, grounded it in a Christian worldview. Thank you, Solomon. Mr. E gifted 5 more memberships over on Jimbob's side. Robbie Heck Music coming in with the big 5. I always love the breakfast question. Well, I feel like everybody knows the breakfast question. It just kind of is, a failure at this point. You can't ask it. Another gifted membership over on Jimbob's side by Fredo Fonzarelli.
Fredo Fonzarelli.
I like that name. Marley Anna also gifted a membership as well.
Thank you, Marley.
AC coming with the big 5. Child rape is wrong until a professor says, actually, minor attraction is okay. And in the UN, lowers age of consent for multiculturalism.
For real.
I bet he does.
For real.
Thank you. See, Kelly Silva coming with the big 5. Thanks for the membership. And Filthy Phil coming in with the big 10. We love you, Filthy Phil. Everybody just say a quick prayer for Filthy Phil. He's got some things going on. We love him. We're glad he's here. Hey, Jimbob, where is the best place to learn about church history? Also, it's good to see you, brother.
I'm going to let DPH answer that.
Church history. I don't know. One of my books that I usually reference to people is Byzantine Theology by Father John Meyendorff. It's a great overview of the development of the Orthodox theology as it relates to church history and the development of Byzantium. But there's a lot of great resources. If you just start, go ahead.
I was going to say, in a simple book I would read for the more simple-minded like myself is The Religion of the Apostles by Stephen DeYoung. Really good chronological account. Second pre-second, post Second Temple. This is a fantastic book to get an account of the continuation of Christianity as opposed to Jewish versus Christianity, because he actually goes over all of that, and it's actually a fairly easy read. So I actually recommend that. That's not going to cover all of church history, obviously, but that's a really good start right there.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. It's Juniper comes in with the big 5. Like the stream or you're going in the crystal. Thank you, Juniper. Beaten Cheeks coming in with the big 5. I love his name. Love watching Bob Jim clean up. My apologies for not knowing much on DPH, but dang, he is good. Haha, keep it up, fellas. Flo, get good, bro. LOL.
Thank you, Beaten Cheeks.
We love Cheeks. Christina, I don't know what those are, but she loves this channel either way. What is ICXCNIKA?
It's the Greek initials for Christ.
Oh, thank you. Naomi coming in with the big 2. Salute to our beautiful host, Sarah. Thank you, Naomi. Love you so much. Blue Skittle coming with a big $10 just to say nothing. I love you too. Fern Love Bond coming with the big 5. There's no debate when the other side incessantly pretends to win no matter what happens. These two aren't making real arguments and aren't worth it. I think that, I'm not sure who that was against or for.
Whoever you're rooting for, that makes sense. So
Right.
just leave it open and then everyone's happy.
Everybody's happy. FB coming in with the big 5. Why can't I cherry pick scripture and take it out of context? I'm not a church authority, and I am just trying to make your religion look bad. L.
Well, Josh and Sally said so. You saw.
And this person who I still can't read all of that comes in again. Shout out with the big 20, or I guess 2 in our world. Mango coming with the big 5. Are these guys participating in some kind of self-humiliation ritual or something? This beating you're giving them is brutal.
We used our dull knives too.
Fern Love Bond comes in with a big 2. If only this debate, haha, good one, had a mod. Yeah, Fern, I already said it. I already answered.
Snap.
I know. They don't like my style when people are losing. Ticky Tack coming in with the big 10. If bees have morality, aren't wasps immoral?
I wanted an answer. Give me one action a bee does that's immoral. And I was like dying for because the memes would never end with that.
Fair enough. Justin Henley coming in with the big 10. Abraham said, the Lord will provide the lamb. He did literally, and it points to the prophecy of Jesus' sacrifice. St. John calls Jesus the Lamb of God when he sees him. Abe plus, what is that, LS? What is that? Abe plus LSS? Is a bad argument.
Abe and...
Oh, Isaiah.
Isaiah. Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Richie Torres MMA coming to big 2. B morality. Yacht.
B jail.
That's actually funny. Daniel Zen coming in with the big 5. DPH be destroying these degens.
Thank you, Daniel.
Degen for life.
Degen for life. David Gravy.
You're converting, dude. We'll get you. You're gonna be hanging around my channel for.
You'll never take my
years.
degeneracy from me.
Well, that's true. But I will set you on a path. I will set you on a path.
And David Gravy, Left Field Liberty, coming up with the big 20. Belated wedding gift, many years, fam. David, I'm guessing that's to you?
That is to me. Thank you very much, David. God bless you, brother. Really appreciate it.
And congratulations. I don't know how far back that was, but congrats. AC coming in with the big 5. Deconstruction. Deconstructionatards. You have to accept our selective use of rabbinic. Is that
yeah, rabbis,
rabbinic?
Jewish rabbis.
Oh, okay. Rabbinic interpretations of sola scriptura. Thank you, AC. The Spartan up north coming with the big 5. There's going to be a global shortage of straw. All the straw men, these numbskulls, have been using their personal interpretation of scripture. That's actually really funny.
That's pretty funny.
Thank you, Spartan. Mark coming in with the big 20. Flow state. More like, I'm not going to say the rest, but I'll
you can say it.
That's funny.
Look at a $20 rage cope.
Increase the rage cope.
More rage cope, Mark.
More rage cope. Yeah.
Dean Lem, too, coming with the big 5. Put them in bee gel immediately. Thuggish, ruggish bees. Mm-hmm. And Filthy Phil. I got Sarah to admit cats are better than dogs. No, fail. Dogs rule. Cats rule. Thank you. Blue Skittle coming with the big 5. If grounding real, why no copper wire? Pretty funny. Smoking Auditor gifting another tomato membership. Thank you, Auditor. I see you backstage too. And he comes in also with a super sticker. Shout out to you. Justin Henley coming with the big 2. Is there call-ins later? We've already answered that. Panel link is pinned. Smoking Auditor gifted another tomato membership. Thank you, Auditor. Tenublik coming with the big 2. Matthew 18:6, condemnation of grape can fit here. Fair enough. If anybody wants to look that up for later. Smoking Auditor, shout out again with another gifted tomato membership. T Nublet with the big 2. Good modding tonight, Madam Tomato. Thank you to you, Nublet. Nublet. Terracois with his membership. My brain can't process morality, so I'm not subject to it. That's my subjective morality. LOL. Fair enough. Beyond Seraphim gifted a 5 Church of Eternal Logos membership. Shout out to you. Pope Biscuit coming in with the Big 10. You and DPH annihilating them. Keep up the great work, guys.
Exactly.
Mark coming in with the Big 10. These guys are shadowboxing with their minds version of Protestants. Literally a broken conversation. These atheists can't even engage with what's in front of them.
Well, they didn't really answer a lot of questions.
Well, actually, just to say, it's actually a really good advice for people arguing against, quote, Christianity. If you come in with the debate, like on TikTok level stuff, you're going to be mostly arguing against like Protestantism and sola scriptura and all that. But to argue against Orthodoxy, you're going to have to come a little more prepared. The same tricks don't work. I'm just, that's actually really good advice you guys should listen to out there who are atheists.
So why wouldn't, and I'm not debating you, I'm just asking, why would the same flaws not hold throughout denominations? Like, what is it significant about Orthodoxy that demands a different approach?
Well, if there's different methodologies for scripture, for hermeneutics, like if they hold to the solas, 5 solas, they're going to be in trouble in defending the faith, right? As they call it, the faith. And so if they have a different, Christology, eschatology, soteriology, you have to have that all sort of bundled in to the argument and the defense or the affirmative. And if that's not the same, you're going to fall into trouble. For instance, the guy who jumped on yesterday, I peeked in for a second there, Flow State. The guy who said he's a Christian, Joel, he was the worst possible help that could have possibly called in for you. Like that was the worst.
He was a nightmare through and through.
That was the worst. Him debating, let's say DPH here, that you would actually see in real time the distinction between the two worldviews, Orthodoxy and what he holds. You would actually see it in real time.
Absolutely agree. Were you still there when he claimed that he worked for Elon Musk at SpaceX?
No. I felt like I shouldn't be in too long because you were prepping. I didn't feel right there.
Well, I privated the video after it was done, but I'll unprivate it if anybody wants to watch that. It was great shit. He totally did not work for SpaceX.
Yeah.
And shout out to Christina becoming a new member over here on I believe it's on my side. I love you, Christina. I love having you aboard. Jordan coming up with the Big 5. Fidget spinner boy and period Flow State have the combined philosophy and debate knowledge of a 5th grade girl. I will say I'm actually disappointed that he rage quit. I feel like everybody's fully aware that Mod Monday does get high tension. So close. I know we were right at the end too, and I would have let him had all the final thoughts he wanted, but that was very disappointing. I don't like to see that.
He had a killer opening statement.
He's already privated the debate too. It looks like he's embarrassed of it.
Oh, well, the ones over here don't get privated, so. Smoking Auditor to come with the Big 2 objection. Don't mess with Mrs. Flow State. We love Mrs. Flow State. Hi, Katie. Sincere Hypocrite coming with the Big 5. A woman calls DPH and JB idiots. Godless says nothing. They dish it back. Godless cries like a girl and rage quits.
Yeah, fell.
Hank Aflamio, sorry if I did it wrong, coming with the Big 5. Godless engineers too soft for the panel verse. Stay away from the atheist cult of Austin Script and listen better. Flow State carried. Flow State, you did do very well for kind of being having a softie there. Mendoza coming with the Big 5. L, soy tits and slow tate. See, once you rage quit, like the chat won't let that one go. They won't. Tulsa Brad coming to the Big 10. Good job, Jimbob.
Thank you, sir.
Black Flame Nova coming with the Big 50. I don't know which side this is coming in. It's over on one of yours. Great debate aside from the emergent Dillahunty look-alike. A BT Wix coming with the Big 2. Your mom. Joe Cool coming with the Big 5. They don't know they lost. John Kell coming with the Big 5. Good job, DPH.
Thank you very much.
Nathan KB coming with the Big 2. Honey, get my sleeveless tuxedo. John Kell gifted 5 made by Jimbob memberships. Shout out to you, John.
Thank you,
Kell.
John.
Joe Mobley Show coming with the Big 2. You absolutely crushed tonight. Well done. BT Wicks coming with the big 2. Yo mama. Joe Mobley, you absolutely crushed tonight. Well, John. Oh, that was again. Oh, okay, you did it twice. The Trib 1 coming with the big 2. What came first, the chicken or the egg? Rebecca coming with the big 5. Completely wrecked them. Well done and entertaining. P. Fletch coming with the 3. If God infallible, why 2 Bibles needed? If God's infallible, why are 2 Bibles needed? Do we have 2 Bibles?
Even if
New
that were
and old.
true, it wouldn't follow either. It's not an argument, but
Fair
appreciate
enough.
the donation.
Oh, Blip21 coming with the big 5. DPH, I love to listen to your content. Turning this into a debate was fantastic. God bless you and your family. Alexander Medeiros coming with the big 5. Ground your morality, but don't use eternal grounding. It's too old. Trib 1 coming with the big 5. If we thought God was real, if he wasn't, and through that grew into having cohesive morality across societies, would y'all attribute that to secularism?
I wish we got into that because of the whole evolutionary purpose for beliefs. If it were the case that, from their view, religion itself, belief in God, was also an emergent property and was useful in the function that matched, let's say, flow state's standard of outcomes. And I don't think flow state denies this. He would then affirm keeping your theology, even if he thought it was false, because functionally it would provide a bunch of utility. So, you know, it shows that from the secular view, there's no standard by which they say you ought to pursue truth if holding false beliefs provide utility.
All right. And Vigo coming with the big 5. Your W has arrived, sir.
Thank you.
Shane Nair coming with the big 10. Just briefly, what would you say would be the biggest argument against something like Hinduism? Does the transcendental argument also apply here as well? Thank you and bless.
So, at some degree, the transcendental argument can be used by a Hindu, but if a Christian was going to do apologetics, the first thing that I would call into question is the concept of Maya, the illusion of the material world, which calls into question epistemic foundations and what can we actually know. So for Hinduism, they, like Buddhism, they believe that the exterior world is an illusion, which again causes epistemic problems. And I think you could make that a pretty strong case if you were going to do an apologetic argument against Hinduism. And
Sikhism would probably be closer to grounding morality because they do,
yes,
I would say, borrow sort of an image bearer status, not quite exactly, but they at least know that it's logically has to be grounded in a being, that an immoral act is an act against someone made in God's image, therefore an act against God or privation from his will. But they don't have they don't have the knowable personhood in the life of Jesus Christ, which is absolutely necessary.
Right.
All right, Samuel coming in with the big 5. Y'all should do a debate with Maya.
Miaphysite and Chalcedonian.
Oh, thank
It's beyond
God.
me.
Thank you. I don't know what that is, but
it's a DPH debate and Jay Dyer.
Oh, that sounds fun. Let's set that up. David Gravy, Left Field Liberty, coming in with the big 5. Moderation style was just fine. The affirmative side just had no leg to stand on. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Vesper coming with the big 5. Secularism can firmly ground morality through rational universal principles, reason, and humanity as the source of our goodness.
Secularism can't even ground reason. So jump on and get wrecked.
Corvo coming with the big 5. Are women
hold on,
allowed
explain that. How can secularism not ground reason?
Reason and, like I said, personhood, mind, like these are things that can't be identical to matter. And a secularist, if you push them on their epistemology, it all reduces to a mechanical physical universe. And so under a mechanical physical, it does. It does. We can debate that later, but it absolutely does. A secular view has no account for any sort of metaphysics or immaterial things. Yeah, it's fine.
Write that one down, boys. And we're almost done. We're almost through them. Corvo coming up with the big 5. Are women allowed to talk in your church? If not, you are grounded and consistent. If not, you are in violation of Corinthians 14:34 objectivity.
We're Orthodox Christians, so we believe in a priesthood, which is exclusive for men.
I think that answers the question. Yeah. I think he was saying talk in your church. I don't know.
I think he's getting at preaching because that's what's being referenced in Corinthians.
Right. Okay. Golden Renaissance Productions, I like that name, coming with the Big 10. I want you to give this to Jimbob and Flow State to get me a sweet weekend in Bertaria 2.0, and Truth or
Yeah.
Cop is the best.
Yeah, there you go.
Shout
Make
out.
sure it happens.
Gourdzilla 37 coming to the Big 5. My Rage Cope only cost me 5 Canadian, and you still stink, Flow. Shoo.
Keep coping, I guess. Cope harder.
Oh, Walmart Wade 96 coming with the Big 2. Did my fake money ancestors have rights? How so?
I don't believe in
fake
evolution.
Monkey, sorry.
You don't
Third one coming with the Big 5. For the Christians, what religion would you say could contend with Christianity, whether it be as strong, as similar to it, as far as objective morals?
I don't think it can, because it's a holistic thing. As far, like I mentioned before, if you're just taking one claim, like I mentioned, Sikhism, if it's just the claim that's similar, like that would be something I reference. But I think maybe DBH, you can take this. But it seems like we're talking about comparative full paradigms. So it's not like one aspect versus another. It has to be the whole thing. And there is nothing that can contend with Christianity in that regard.
That would get into interreligious apologetics. And so the transcendental argument in its sort of rudimentary state is just arguing that a transcendent entity is the grounding for the transcendental objects. So another theistic religion, monotheistic religion or whatnot, could do that. However, once you start getting in, as Jimbob's highlighting, the coherency of a paradigm, which obviously once we're dealing with religion, we're dealing with things that are beyond empirical investigation. Now we can use the coherency of the traditions and systems of thought and theology itself to demonstrate which one's more coherent. And so in that type of context, we as Christian apologists would pinpoint points, whether it be Islam or Judaism, where there seems to be internal contradictions that can't be resolved in their own paradigm.
Thank you, gentlemen. Yeah. Oh, did you have something to add?
I was just hoping that Vesper comes on, because he's saying a lot of funny things that I love crushing.
I don't see him in the backstage.
You better jump on, Vesper, and not be all loud. I'll ban you if you don't jump on. Do you need a timer? There's a timer right there, 59 seconds. You don't call in to Raging Tomato, you get banned.
He might have to wait. We do have a full set backstage, so I know I've got a few extra seats back there too to hold. But Shane Nair coming in with the Big 10 also wanted to say, Jimbob, I saw you on Fresh and Fit, so I have 2 questions. Is hypothetical hypocritical, and how many watches have you given to people? You got a great Mr. Wilson impression, by the way. And Pim Oroz coming in with Big 20. Good debate, Jimbob, with the rapid fire, while DPH calm and collective to deliver a death blow. All right. Thank you so much. If anybody wants to add any last responses to any of those, that's fine. Otherwise, we will go into open panel dumpster fire and we'll have some fun. What do you say?
I just want to say one thing, because I had a gentleman that was trying to get a super chat on, and he sent it to a different place, so it didn't show up.
Sure.
So I just wanted to read it for him. Jay Hamza threw in $20 and says, what hope is there if you don't believe in God? You explain morals without God if you choose, but what hope do you have to keep living if there is no God? What purpose do you actually have? Which gets into the euthanasia point that Jimbob was highlighting. So it was geared towards godless engineer and flow state.
That's a good question. I'd say that it's up for everyone to decide for themselves, really. I don't know that I believe that force placing, if you're forcing yourself to try to believe in God so that you have something to hope for, that's the wrong approach. I don't think that believing in something that otherwise you would not believe in because you want to believe it is a good approach.
And just one more real quick, I apologize, but Michael sent in $40. He says, if relative universality holds weight in flux and the objective truth standard of orthodoxy is static and consistent, are both true in their groundedness as a result of those who share in consensus thereof.
Can you do that one again?
He says, if relative universality holds weight in flux, so he's talking about the relativity of material change in an evolutionary paradigm, and the objective truth standard of orthodoxy is static and consistent. So he's demonstrating two separate systems that are both universally consistent, are both true in their groundedness as a result of those who share in consensus thereof. And I would argue no, because the point of a debate is making positive affirmative claims based on logic. So the whole point of a debate is highlighting logical fallacies. And when somebody appeals to relativism, they've lost a debate because their point is just as equal as the other person's point, whether it be on truth or morality or anything like that. Because how can you win a debate if your opinion is just your opinion, and therefore my opinion is my opinion? They're of equal worth. So I would say that the universality of orthodox consistency is absolutely stronger than a universality of relativity.
That's why I pointed out that if it's the case that our opponents say, yes, you can ground morality in ever-changing preference-based thoughts and opinions, if you could do that with morality, you should be able to do that with truth. Like, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to do that with truth. But as Flow State said, well, you can't do that with truth. Truth is absolute and unchanging, but morality can be changing. Well, if it's grounding, you should be able to, by principle, ground truth in something that's just completely on the whim, the way they do morality. Just that's why truth and morality they're not interchangeable, but they're inseparable. You can't separate the two.
And I would say that a grounding, the claim that orthodoxy is unchanging is a falsehood. So trying to ground your views on morality in a falsehood is going to always be the weaker grounding than even an arbitrary one that's grounded in reality.
Well, that's weaker than ever changing. That could change from 5 p.m. to 5:01. Really? You think orthodoxy is more changing than the view that you could change morality from 5 p.m. to 5:01?
I think it is more unstable, given that it obviously has changed over time, but you deny that it has changed.
Even if you granted it, which I don't, but I'll grant it for the sake of argument, 2,000 years, the same liturgy. If you go into any Orthodox parish on Sunday, you'll experience the same liturgy, same sacraments, same processes, same doctrine. By the way, listen, hold on. Same Christology, same eschatology, same Trinity doctrine. All of that's the same. And you're saying your view, which changes from 5 p.m. to 5:01 p.m., is more grounded than 2,000 years of constant practice.
My view personally is fixed in negative rights. Your view, I don't know enough about orthodoxy to know whether or not what you say is true about how it's been unchanging for 2,000 years. However, given what I've seen about your claim as to God's law being fixed and unchanging, I'm skeptical.
Let's put a pin in that one.
Yep.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is we're going to go into open panel dumpster fire. Now, listen, I do have some people who are not cammed up backstage. That's okay, but I'm going to do an overlay. And once I get everybody on screen, if everybody could just be quiet for a moment so I can voice confirm with those who I feel like they're okay. Yeah, I see you, auditor. And to those who are backstage, it is full. So I think there might be the last two that joined who might still be hanging in the background until somebody drops. All right, let's get going.
Yes, and I do want to extend my appreciation. I do think that Sarah has been an adequate moderator. I think that there's times where she needs to mind her own fucking business in this space, but she's been an adequate moderator, and I do appreciate her having me on her channel.
Listen, I love you, the Raging Tomato, but I would kill myself doing more red pill debates, okay?
The Raging Tomato, at least she is attempting, like, she's trying to be a comedian. You know, she's trying to be funny.
Okay, so if I could just get I know that's you. Justin Henley, can you voice confirm for me?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and we're not going to get any peens on screen or anything gross, correct?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. And I think that's everybody else is cammed up. All right, gentlemen. Now, listen, the only rule I have is I don't want to have to yell. If you start talking over me, then I'm going to have a problem. If you see my hand up, that means I'm probably trying to interfere. But let's try to do this kindly and politely, one at a time. You start getting in screaming matches, I just mute everybody and tell you all to fuck off. All right. I believe Flo and Jimbob, if you wanted to continue that conversation, that's perfectly fine. And reminder to the chat, if you donate on my end, we can put anybody in timeout for a certain amount of time. And when they get put out for that amount of time, it's going to be fun. And then we bring somebody else up, so on and so forth.
How much to put you out?
I'm gonna give the
$200 to throw me backstage, and I'll let somebody
Flo,
else.
is it okay?
Rules.
Flo, is it okay we give the mics to the callers? We don't need
Yeah,
to like.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. Are they just asking questions, kind of like the Crucible does, or just like an open?
We could go that way. It's called open panel dumpster fire for a reason. Usually it starts off pretty cordial, and
Here,
then,
I can help you with that.
and then it goes. Jimbob, the last
You,
time
Joe Cool,
Jimbob-
you're my little spoon. Flow State, you're a scum. Emperor Dave, you're cool, man. Screw the other guy over here, and I don't even know Justice, so I'm not going to judge him.
Let's
the callers tell who they think
I'm
won
Dave.
the debate. Let the callers say
All
who
right.
they think won the debate.
All right, let's everybody shut up.
I was going
Blip
to say
coming in
it's
with the big
midnight. I don't know if other
21.
people are East Coast time, so I may peace out here after a little bit.
That's
just to get
perfectly
in here.
fine.
Okay.
Oblip 21 coming with the big 5, just to say nothing. I love you too. Jay Hamza coming with the big 5. You worship something. It's just your own God. Therefore, you actually hold a I'm guessing
If you
agnostic
say
view.
so, I guess.
Fair enough. All right, let's start with Joe Cool. Did you have any particular questions you wanted to ask or particular thoughts so far?
I guess I could do either. I prefer to give my thoughts. I thought it was clear on the debate. I thought Flo carried it alone. The other guy was a deficit. It was clear they knew Flo carried it because they kept giving all the attention to the guy with the deficit. And also, I'm a fan of the argument. These guys were a fan of tactics. And like, for instance, if they'd avoid Flo's argument and Jimbob in particular asks an endless line of questioning, drawing you away from the argument, that may please the crowd and what I perceived as a got you moment that may please the crowd, but I consider things like those a deficit, and we could start whenever we get a chance. I like to argue that the one that you guys was just talking about, that you change, that your stuff never changes, is grounded, it never changes. Flo said it great. You do a 180 and you rationalize it. There is some room there for that argument, but everything can't be, we were evolving over time. We were divulging stuff over time. If we see a bunch of complete 180s occurring, which it seems like we'd have to discuss.
Do you think you came from a monkey?
Jimbob, stop being so racist, dude.
It was important.
This is an example of the endless line of questionings that you go into
No,
when you're
listen,
in
why, Joe Cool. Listen,
Secularism.
stop the
But go
poetry for a
ahead.
second. I get it. You should put saxophone music behind your little diatribes. But
That
the
nonsense
thing is,
too. You
Hold
pulled
on,
a lot of
Joe,
that
hold on,
nonsense.
Joe.
It's a weakness.
Joe,
All right,
you
all
asked
right.
a lot of
It's
stuff.
rhetoric.
Let him
Sorry.
respond.
Sorry.
rhetoric, tactics, debate, arguments, DPH and I did all of that today, right? So it wasn't just rhetoric. It wasn't just tactics. There's nothing wrong with tactics in a debate.
Agreed.
You attack the weakness. By the way, you pointing out correctly the weak link, I agree. And the tactic, from your own view, if you found out there was a weak link,
I'd have
why
probably
the hell,
jumped.
Joe Cool, would you not attack it?
I'd have probably jumped him, man.
Okay, good. High five. Now,
High
do you believe
five.
you came- do you
I'd have
believe you
still
came from a
fought my
monkey, though?
argument, man. I wouldn't have ran from Flo, bro. I'd have fought them arguments, bro.
Yeah, but the thing is, when someone says something changed, they have to figure out, first of all, in their view, they think in denominations. So I've obviously, David Patrick, Harry, and I deny denominations, the validity of such a category. But if their approach is to say you're ever changing, you're changing, they're going to have to point to throughout church history inside the Orthodoxy where this change occurs and to what magnitude we're talking about, right? So if you can't do that, and that's another debate. By the way, Joe, the debate isn't whether or not Orthodoxy in your view of it and your limited conception changes. The question is whether or not we toss out God. Can secularism without God ground morality? Read it.
I wish the argument would have stayed there too. I don't want to monopolize since you just opened it up, but I love everything you just said. Yeah.
All right.
High five. High five.
Yes,
You with us?
ma'am.
I know you have thoughts.
Present.
Where do I begin? I was going to let everyone else go first, and then I'll jump in.
Thank
I don't
God.
want Jimbob to rage quit yet, so I'll give him some time.
There is a God. That just proves God exists.
Dave, to you.
Hey, that just converted me. I'm with it too.
Well, actually, I do have a quick request before we get into it. Would DPH be able to get Jay Dyer for me and do an Ortho Bro special? Is that something you'd be interested in?
Who's an Ortho Bro special? Hi-Fi. He's a. What are you, a solo script?
I was on your panel before, DPH.
Oh yeah.
You know me.
So I couldn't see who was.
Look at him to pretend to remember your
It's
ass.
the seashell talking. Seashell.
You're asking if I can get Dyer on with a panel with you and myself?
Yeah, to do like an Ortho Bro special. I kind of feel like that would be a productive conversation.
God, stop being such a pick me.
But he's pretty busy, so you may want to reach out to him.
Would you be interested in that, or
I'd be open to it? Yeah.
All right, we'll do it. We may do it here on Tomato if you're interested in that. Would that sound like fun?
Man, will you send a fucking email?
What's the prompt of the
This
Ortho
could
Bro
have
special?
been
Though?
It's mostly politics, but we can get into religion too if you guys.
You
want.
will get into
I'm
religion.
game for either.
You will.
All right, Dave, to you.
Yeah. Okay. So first, I feel like DPH and Jimbob had a huge advantage in this, as they're both coming from like a similar line of logic. Like theirs are gonna align, but Flow State and the other guy, they needed to get together before this and kind of come up with a cohesive plan, because I feel like you were both going for something different, and his attempt to try to attack Christianity is really just what caused the downfall of your team.
Yeah.
Because like that wasn't even like what his challenge was. He didn't need to disprove Christianity's
Very good.
Correct.
Consistency or moral grounding. That was just a waste of time and effort.
Keep his composure together, and these two asshats.
I was gonna say, Taylor, you're really good at not being provoked, right? You're so dead inside that it just doesn't.
Nothing here. This is the benefit of being an agnostic and having no God.
But okay, my question though is to Jimbob and DPH. Because I don't believe it was ever stated, what is your definition that you're going with for grounding? Like, what did they need to prove for grounding? Did they need it to be grounded to a physical object?
Good question.
Could it have been a conceptual?
We're here for the opening, Dave, or no?
Yeah,
I missed the very, very opening, so maybe it was, but I feel like it got lost somewhere in the middle then.
Okay.
Because I didn't feel like they were going off of a ground. There was a grounding that was.
I understand. I agree, Dave.
So, if I was in their position, and that's what me and Jimbob do, we kind of focus on internal critiques.
Yeah.
And if you're a naturalist or a materialist, there's only a few methods in which you can try to ground a universal morality. And utilitarian would actually been one of their better moves, because that's what utilitarianism is. It's trying to argue for universal standards based on only the use of reason. Now, they'd still come up with problems, and I had aspects in which I was willing to dive into utilitarianism with them if they're going to. So they only can choose, if you're only focusing on the material, they can only choose a culturally relativistic convention, which is kind of where they went, or you could use a utilitarian standard, which at least now it's grounded in some type of system. Now, then the debate would have been different, because I'd be trying to internally critique utilitarianism. Or they can do it in an evolutionary, what Godless Engineer did, emergentism. But that doesn't get out of the is-ought problem. So at least with utilitarianism, there's a sort of an ought claim because of the happiness or the well-being of the majority. That would have been one of the stronger arguments.
That was the best argument. I was waiting on.
Could you go with like a societal consensus argument for the grounding of your morality?
But you have to bite bullets if you do that.
Well, yeah, but I think that's okay. I think being able to bite a bullet is extremely important in debate. Like, you're not going to have an answer to everything. You have to take your hits where they are.
Yes, it's
and if you can't bite a bullet,
honorable.
you get
But
destroyed.
that's what we asked. But the thing is, the flow state and worse, the other guy for sure.
Yeah.
The inability and unwillingness to follow a line of logic to its consequences. That's DPH
Get
and
dog
it's our
walked down the
specialty.
drain.
Yeah, basically, yeah. You dog walk down the drain, right? And
Right.
that's
It also didn't help that the other
You
guy
need a bigger leash. You're going to try to
respond
dog walk me
One
into
at a
it. into a
time.
corner.
One at a time.
However, Taylor, though, the logical consequences are totally valid as far as the
Only if you start from an
cross-examination.
illogical premise. Your premise is very logical.
You state the assumption, right? So Dave's talking about utilitarianism. Almost every time, I haven't witnessed a time it's not the case, where if you follow increased well-being, it has to be the case that, let's say, Malthusian Depop, if it were the case that Depop, for certain people, maybe people who look like a godless engineer, unhealthy people, do away with them. If it was demonstrated or it was a reasonable belief that that increased the well-being of all the people who weren't deleted, you really couldn't argue against it being a moral imperative, right? You
Correct.
just
And I
have to
think
bite
that
the
that's
bullet.
still a higher standard than God told me. So
Let me do this since this was Jimbob's specific request. Vesper is here. Vesper, can you just voice confirm for me?
Show your pee-pee.
Don't show your pee-pee. Vesper. Vesper, are you with us? Vesper. You have to hit the unmute button.
Unmute, dude.
Hit it.
And put your pants on first.
Put your pants on.
I'm just taking mine off.
All right. Well, I'll put him
Might not
backstage
be
again.
him. Okay.
May I just finish
I've
my
got-
response to empirical?
Yeah, go for it. I appreciate it.
Dave. I was getting ready to say empiricism or something, but so even with utilitarianism, at least that would have been more of a logically coherent argument. But my critiques would have still been regards to relativism, because it depends on the problem with utilitarianism is it emerges post-enlightenment out of a Christian society. So the concept of the good and the concept of happiness were already rooted in a Christian ethos. So I would then challenge the opponent to define what happiness is and why we should choose your definition of happiness, which gets back to the subjective relativistic dimension of their argument. Now they could have tried to make more scientific arguments on what happened, and then at least now they're at least logically going and building an argument, but they never got there. So utilitarianism still has problems. And one of the things, if they actually went there, I was going to push them on, is that utilitarianism by definition is okay in regards to doing something to a minority if it benefits the majority. So they would have to bite the bullet, for example, if traditional Christians are in opposition to the happiness and well-being of LGBTQ people, they would have to bite the bullet and saying enslaving or persecuting Christians or doing away with them in society would actually benefit the collective. Well, we could then say, well, that's obviously immoral because you're now criticizing us for the same thing.
Which depends on your worldview. Like, I mean,
which wouldn't work
I
with
don't have
mine.
an anti-Christian worldview, and I am Republican, so I mean, I don't mind ruling against
And
a
he's a
minority
white
in a way if it's something
Really
that's
white
beneficial to the whole of society, but unbeneficial to a
Skinhead.
small group. That's fine. I'm not saying that like intentionally do it, obviously, but if it's a sacrifice you have to make, it's a sacrifice you have to make for the greater society.
Oops, I just ran over that person at the crosswalk.
Well, it's just always like DPH said, it ends up being the will of the majority anyway. And like, furthermore, like if you say, let's say the happiness and well-being, it's interesting that a utilitarian might take the approach of like, let's say euthanasia and those little self-deletion pods they have in Switzerland and stuff. They say, oh, well, it's better to give them the option to delete themselves because of the horrific existence they have. And yet they totally do a 180 U-turn when it comes to like a Troons. We have to bend the will to accommodate the Troons, whereas wouldn't the utilitarian view be if you're in agony, just like the person who's paying for the pod, right? Just do that, right? That would be their consistent view, but they're not consistent. They go euthanasia, self-deletion, good over here to avoid agony, but these people, we're going to make the majority change their language, their pronouns, their entire metaphysics and theology to accommodate these people so that they're not stuck in agony. Well, that's just inconsistent.
Yeah, I would consider that a lie. Like if lying is wrong, which I do think it is, I think that accommodating the Troons too much or enabling them, it's akin to giving an alcoholic a beer.
Yeah, I think I agree. It hurts. It actually hurts them
Why are we
Those are the majority of my questions. I'm going to jump down so Vesper can get up because it looks like he cleared his issue.
Fair
Sorry.
enough. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one, guys. Appreciate you.
Bye, Dave.
Good to see him. Dave.
All right, let me try this one more. Oh wait, now
DPH,
he's-
you got to
But at
stay
the
on for
same
this
time,
one.
I don't think it would be right to prevent a troon who's an adult from trooning.
Why are you guys talking about cartoons? I don't get it.
Choo choo.
Now Vesper's
Vesper's
not there.
No,
Your dude is
left
having
for
an
no
issue.
reason.
Yeah, I had to.
So
switch
Flo,
teams.
your friends there gave you the answer.
Hold on a second. Santis World, is that you?
Oh, great.
Hello.
Santis?
No.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Check, mic check.
We're not going to show any
Hey, I
memes
don't
or
know
anything
Jim
gross.
They're not both say anything, are they?
Pardon me. If everybody could shut the fuck up, that'd be great. Santis. Do
Yeah, I
you
just
hear
have
me?
I just have to
Well,
expand on
just
the
shut up
question
for
I
a
asked.
minute. Santis, I need you to
Ma'am,
listen
okay,
to me. Thank you. I just want to make sure you're confirming you're not going to show a penis or anything gross on the screen.
I'm not.
Okay. I see you.
What about
I
his
see you.
face? What if we think his face is gross?
It's subjective.
Subjective.
Bob's and vagine are okay, just no penis.
Active. What if that was the
Well,
case?
Jimbob is in love with my face. That's fine.
Okay,
That's
hold
all I
on,
need to
because
know.
we're going to Truth or Cop. It's now his turn.
Thank you. Finally, I cannot believe you had these two fucking clowns up here, Jimbob and Flow State, arguing and debating and some sort of fucking officials on some shit. These guys are fucking YouTube clowns. Okay, they're no different than me. Whatever you think that I am, the worst you can do to me right
True.
now.
Are you saying clowns can't argue?
It's even worse.
Go.
Are you saying clowns can't debate?
Why is your
Are you
mic
saying
popping
Are you
in
saying
and out?
clowns don't give a service to the world?
Do they taste funny?
Do you
Yeah,
see
what's the
the
matter
hat?
with being a clown? It's weird.
I'm still trying to fucking figure it out with you, Jimbob.
You look like a hacky sack that you look like a person that reincarnated as a hacky sack.
Truther, it's trolls trolling trolls. Get it straight, dude.
Look, we're superior trolls than you. Next,
Is he a ginger too?
he's ginger. He cannot even
So
talk.
Flow State, they gave you the answer. Utilitarian's a good start. I would even go egalitarian, all something concrete.
Truth or Cop, are you spazzing out like a tard?
Man,
What
you
is
need to
wrong
watch
with
that
you?
shit.
What is wrong with you? Okay, that was a total tartar moment. Please don't do that.
Opportunity, woman. Here I am.
Your microphone keeps cutting it out, and it really is starting to bother me. I might boot you if it keeps going. All right, go ahead, iFi.
So Flow State, if in the future, if you want to be serious about these things, I would start with like a Confucius type argument where clearly there's grounded morality without religion and or God, and then build your case
Nature.
from there.
Yeah.
But you didn't even try, which was kind of disappointing.
I appreciate the advice and the intention, but I've stomped you at every debate we've ever had.
You
He
have
did
beaten
kill
me
that
in
fight.
nothing. Good,
Flow State, why
good
didn't you
case
go with
there.
unity? You always went with unity up until this point. What
I
happened?
figured that because I think that my worldview is too novel, or my perspective on morality is too novel for me to start to try to reconstruct from scratch for a whole audience.
By the way,
Like-
I do want to ask Ortho Bros, what is your answer to can we ground morality without God? Was that like a no, hard no with
No.
an asterisk? Like what?
Hard. I would say hard no.
Hard no.
What about nature? Why is that?
What-
not?
what about-
I can have
what about
morals
changing-
and it's
Hold on,
grounded
hold on.
in nature.
What about
What's
what
good
about
for
the
all? Oh, I'm sorry.
patriarchs?
Yeah.
What about Gentiles?
What about? That's not a full question. You got to ask a full question. with
Okay,
a big
since
boy.
I gave Flo the answer, I'll go ahead and hit it with you. What did Confucius teach morality to his people?
Why do you think you have the answers, iFi?
I'm not talking to you, Flo. I'm talking to them.
Well, technically, it's not your turn, iFi. You gave up
I
your
don't know
turn
anything
to ask
about
an email
Confucius.
question.
Yell at him, tell him to shut the fuck up.
Justin
I asked
Henley,
them a
question
question,
to you.
and I'm talking
I
to
know,
them.
but it's not. We're going around about first. Let everybody get a question on.
Oh,
and then-
sorry.
then
Well, we're
you
all
can
taking
start.
turns.
You had your turn. Justin, to you.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask Flow State, if I have declared an action moral based on God, somebody else agrees with that, but they don't believe in God, and you disagree with that, how do we determine whose morality is right?
So you declare something moral because of God. Somebody who doesn't believe in God agrees with you, and then the third person doesn't agree and doesn't believe in God. Who's right?
Yeah.
Well, there isn't a way of sussing that out because it's a disagreement, right? Like, there's not anything intrinsic in the paradigm that gives it an out.
So your morality is no better than anybody else's because we have no way of measuring the value of the morality.
You understand that your morality didn't win in that scenario either.
I'm doing an internal critique of you right
You're
now.
trying to, but it didn't work because in the paradigm you set
It
up,
doesn't work because
your
morality is
religious
subjective.
reason also doesn't win the disagreement.
So morality is subjective, and we can just all make it up, and it doesn't matter. I mean, in your ending statement, you said
You totally
that all of
flubbed the
history-
example, but you're going to push forward with your conclusion anyways.
You said in your conclusion, all of history shows us that you don't need God for morality. Does that include the people who acted immoral in history?
Yes,
Are they
there's
demonstrating
immoral people in every society. No moral code has
Cool.
stopped
So history
immorality.
doesn't even show your conclusion, is what you're saying.
Say again.
So history doesn't even show your own conclusion.
Are you
that
suggesting that there was no immorality among the Israelites or among the early Christians?
From
I
your
can
view, there
point to the
can't be.
Bible and show you that they were immoral. Like,
Okay.
that's not a counter to my position.
Again, the paradigms you're setting up to try to prove a point have fallen flat again.
They would have had morality as well, right? They would have had morality as well, right?
So, since he's such a Bible scholar, I heard him sniping during the debate. Did God ever punish the Israelites for breaking his commandments?
He did.
Oh, okay. So your conclusion falls flat again.
What does that demonstrate?
You notice how they're nodding?
Do you ask me if God punished any other society that acted immorally?
He totally did.
The Midianites, Numbers 31, who your partner wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
Let's.
which was a specific.
I don't know
event.
enough about the Midianites. But I would say that every society, you can call it karma, you can call it God's punishment, you can call it whatever the fuck you want. Bad behavior begets bad outcomes, and I think that we can see that universally throughout humanity.
Yeah, that's great politicking there. But let me just end with
It's not politicking,
The
it's
point of the
explaining.
debate was to ground morality. Just saying everybody has morality and has an opinion on it means absolutely nothing.
You ground your morality. Go ahead.
Okay, God's declarations there.
God's declaration. Well, you know what? I read on the back of this Girl Scout cookies box, my morality. How is your book better than mine?
So can you erase it and just change it based on your own whims?
Oh my gosh.
You can
You
erase
guys
the
want to
Bible on
keep
your
going?
left.
Notice how they're laughing because they get it.
They're laughing because you're struggling. Do you know how many different versions of the Bible there are?
How many?
One. The one.
Thousands. There's thousands.
Yeah,
Now you're just
there's-
being ignorant on purpose.
Are you appealing to Protestantism now?
Yeah, you're.
I'm
Wait,
explaining that there
listen.
are many, many versions of the Bible. If you deny that, I don't know what to do with you. Guys, do you want to save your boy?
He's doing
Anyone who
fine.
attacks
You
Protestants,
equating reading
man.
Girl Scout cookie
Well, no,
box.
There's only one version of the Bible.
It's fallacious to say. Let's say. It's
Well, one
fallacious to say there's
Hold
so
on,
many.
hold on. How many
Dude,
versions
I'm
of the
just-
Bible are there?
I'm telling you, it's fallacious to say there's so many versions of something. Like, we don't even grant that, but even if we did, it doesn't follow that there's so many versions, therefore none are true. That's not a logical.
That wasn't the point I was making, but hold on. So you don't believe that there are multiple versions of the Bible?
There's heterodox.
There's thousands of them.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't agree that all of them are true. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
I didn't make that claim that
I
they
know
were all
you don't
true.
care about truth or objectivity or anything. You're
I do care about truth.
I do care about truth. Thank you. You finally gave me a proper critique of my own position.
Okay.
You do this badly on Glenn Lawrence's show too. By
No,
the way.
no, you're not.
Somebody else want to help him?
Truth, Flow State. What is your basis?
Did
of
anyone
help me?
Flo, just because there's revisions and translations doesn't mean there isn't an original source and message. We all
I
agree.
never made
there's an
that
original
claim.
source
I
and
never
message.
made that claim.
Flow State, let me just shift gears for a second. Flow State, I heard you say something. Bad moral actions create bad moral outcomes. Would you do the moral thing if you knew it would probably create a bad outcome for you? Would you still do the moral thing out of principle, or would you only
Hold on.
do what produces the outcome you prefer?
Ask that question again. Would I do the moral?
You said before in this little exchange that bad moral actions produce bad outcomes. I asked you, would you hold to a moral decision you found moral to do, even if you knew it produced a bad outcome? Would you still do the moral thing?
I would think. I mean, the question suggests a misunderstanding of morality.
No, listen, look, if someone held a gun to your head and there was a bunch of, quote, bad guys, right, and they said, do X, right, something horrific. If you thought your outcome was favorable if you just listened to them, as some abhorrent thing you did to your dog or something, I don't have to get graphic, would you do the thing based on the outcome and call that a moral action because of the outcome? Or would you not do the thing even though you would suffer for not complying with the outcome?
I can't answer that without having more specifics.
Do you mean like stealing is wrong, but if your family is hungry, would you steal?
I think that I think that you have to weigh the harm done under each scenario, because I consider inaction to be action. So if I don't do a thing, I still consider that doing the thing. If that makes sense.
Truth or cop, I'm gonna boot you, not because I don't like you, but your mic is absolutely not coming through. I saw you talking, and I could very faintly hear.
Yeah, I
it,
didn't
but
know you were talking.
Yeah, it's not gonna work on a large panel right now. But fix your stuff and come back later or something. We'll see you
Thanks
around.
for coming on.
He can hear you. And then Vesper, if you can unmute
Vesper.
yourself, you got this.
It'd be funnier, Vesper, if you don't say anything.
I know
It'd
you
be
can do it.
funnier.
Everybody shut up, Vesper.
Check,
Talk
check,
to
1,
me.
2. Oh
All
my
right.
God, it's him.
And Vesper, we're not going to show anything we shouldn't be showing, correct?
Oh my gosh, put that away.
Vesper.
There's no rules against showing your
Shut
taint.
up, Vesper.
What are we showing?
No, you're not showing anything, correct?
No.
Doesn't hurt anyone. Doesn't hurt
Okay.
anyone.
Just making sure. Thank
All
you.
right, here's what we've been waiting for.
So, you said atheists can't ground reason.
Do you really talk like that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh boy. Well, while he's
ahead.
talking all wispy and whimsical, Blip 21 comes in. He says, "Oh wait, sorry, I missed one here. Nope, I didn't. Blip 21 coming with the 5. Tiring stream, but worth it. Everyone have a good night."
I'm just
And
getting
then
warmed up.
David Gravy coming with a big 5 goal. And Turquoise gifted 10 Church of Eternal Logos memberships. Congratulations to the lucky winners. And Justin Henley coming with the big 5. He sucks. I got to go to bed. Have a great
Good
night,
night, Justin.
champs.
Listen,
Good night.
before David Patrick Harry, he's getting tired. He's got to go. Vesper, go ahead and produce your statement you did in the chat there about grounding morality in nature. Is that what you said?
Rational universal principles, reason, and humanity as the source of our goodness.
What? So reasoning itself is good. Your own source of,
That's how
goodness is
that's
your
how you
own reasoning.
ground morality from a secular.
Wait. Okay. So can you tell me something that's wrong, that's objectively grounded in just your own reasoning?
So rational, universal moral principles, right? They're established through reason, logic.
I understand your assertion. I'm asking for an example. Name something that's
So,
immoral.
like harm principle, for example. Things that are harmful are generally bad, right?
Yeah.
Are they always bad or just generally bad?
Generally.
Are you whispering or talking?
He's
I'm talking.
Goodness gracious. Look.
Don't answer the questions, bro. Don't answer.
Name one Vesper. Name one
I think
thing.
he's correct so far.
Vesper, name one thing is objectively immoral and how you grounded that claim. X is immoral from reasoning, rationality, whatever else you're going to add in there, please.
Unjust things are immoral due to the universal principle of justice.
Name one instance or example that's immoral. Saying immoral things are immoral doesn't answer the question. I'm asking for a specific thing that you find immoral, that we all know what it means, the thing you're referencing. X
You don't know what
happening,
injustice means?
No, you're question begging. You're just assuming
Give him an
justice is
instance, bro.
unjust.
Give him an example.
Give me an example, dude. You don't gonna act like you don't know what an example is. X is
So like an
immoral
innocent
because
person going to prison is
the
unjust,
innocent
right?
person going to prison is unjust and is immoral because of what?
Due to the principle of justice. Moral principle.
That doesn't ground the concept.
That's a universal moral principle.
Yeah, great. So it's unjust because it's unjust, but you can't tell me why, but
Right.
it is. Right, okay. Good job.
The only immoral
don't know
person about
why
a person going to jail is the one who
Innocent
took
person
him
going to
there.
jail is unjust.
What's that? What's that, Wispy? What do you got there?
You don't understand why an innocent person going to prison is unjust.
Why does your voice sound like a butterfly escaping?
I think he's laying in bed talking like this.
like-
Because he's too
look,
lazy to fucking
why-
sit
wait.
up and have a conversation.
Are we debating morality or how people sound?
Well, it's rhetoric, okay?
Who said that?
Totally, dude.
Yeah, so look, I'm asking an action, right, that occurs, right? Tell me why it's immoral from just pure reasoning, other than just saying it's unjust because it's unjust. That doesn't tell us. That's just a tautology. It's wrong
maybe-
because it's wrong.
Because it hurts someone, I think, is the answer. Better
Is that
answer.
it? I would love it. I would love an answer from
Can I say
It's a
something?
moral principle. Justice is a universal moral
You
principle.
can't keep using moral. You
Therefore,
can't keep
things that
using
are
the same
unjust
word.
are
Dude,
immoral.
you're not saying anything. You
Circular
deserve
reasoning,
that
man.
voice. You
I
deserve that
want to know
voice.
what the definition of immoral is. That's what I want to know.
Yeah, right? That's what we want to know.
Does anybody have any questions
Things
for me? I'm
people
gonna hop
ought
in.
to do is
DPH,
morality.
I actually saved this guy for you, DPH. I'm sorry
Quite
about
simple.
the
I don't
letdown.
understand why you don't get it.
It's simple that A equals A because it does, and you just don't have to say anything else.
So, like, you don't understand what morality is to begin with.
Oh, wow. That's another great
Nobody
argument.
does.
So
Morality is based upon principles.
DPH, whenever we get a chance, I got a question for you.
Are there such a thing as
Principles
moral
make the
facts,
distinction between
Vesper?
good and bad or right or wrong behavior. Justice being a principle, unjust things are immoral.
who determines what's just and unjust, please, sir?
Logic, reason.
No, who?
Judges.
Logic is a tool. No, tool. Logic is a tool. Okay, which judges decide what's just and unjust?
Like, why are you shifting the goalpost?
What do you mean? You just said unjust, right, is unfair and immoral. I just ask you, how do you determine what's unjust? You said logic and judges.
Wouldn't it be everybody's moral responsibility to figure that out for themselves?
Right. It's an individual thing.
All judges, or just two judges, or one judge?
I will point out that if you have to use logic and reason, this would be the individual who's up to using that.
As a tool, right?
I will point out that I'm the judge, and there's almost 900 of you watching. And if you haven't hit the like, subscribe, and
What-
share button, you are wrong.
What was
DPH, you want to ask him one more question before you go to bed? This guy, just to really.
What was our peak number?
Set in his
1,500.
His
Well, somebody already highlighted him. Keep saying morality and justice without defining and grounding it in something universal is just circular reasoning. Saying the same word over and over doesn't justify it.
Saying universal over and over again doesn't make it true.
DPH,
Yeah.
I want you to break down an argument for me. You named some things that you had ready-made counter arguments to, which I thought was great. And I'm assuming that the one I'm going to talk about, which is nature, falls in your list somewhere. I would like to hear some of your counter arguments to. I'm not grounded in God. I'm grounded in nature, in the sense that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I don't want to be hurt, so I shouldn't hurt someone else. Starting there.
So if you're going to root morality in nature, the best argument to go to would be like natural law.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so like flow states appeal to transformers as violating sort of a natural law that would abide. The problem with the debate where we would go if they went that way is if they're just appealing to nature, and if they are materialists, well, then they're screwed, because in their own worldview, materiality is constantly changing in an evolutionary process.
Now, you lost me. I don't know what a materialist would be, so I can't insert them in the argument.
Also, I'm confused about something. Isn't natural law theory saying that God has like created things?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. But people have appealed to natural law, especially if you're familiar with like post-Renaissance Enlightenment thinking, without appealing to God, based on rational observation, inductive methods of observing nature.
Okay.
Where we would go with that argument is highlighting the logical problem of a universal moral law. That if there is a universal moral law, there has to be, the next logical premise is there has to be a lawgiver, which then brings in the question of a transcendental.
Really? Why can't the goose for the gander? I don't want to hurt anyone else because I don't want to hurt me. Why does
But
God
some
have
people
to
want to
play?
hurt people in nature, though. Like, if you can get what you want by cause and effect in nature, you can't really say it's wrong, because the goose wants what it wants, right? So nature unfolding, as DPH is saying, like, there's nothing in nature, in materiality, that tells you your oughts. So you're left saying it is what it is.
By
Whatever
nature, do you mean-
unfolds is right.
There's always
That's the same as if a
nature or that's himself.
If it's in my nature to rob and steal, how are you going to argue against it?
Are you a BC boy?
But the premise in the beginning was you can't harm anyone. So if that's in your nature, you are outside of my Christianity. That's like some guy claiming that he's a Christian in your book, but doing horrible shit. He's outside of my rules now. I gave you the rules of nature, harm no man.
Well, if you subscribe to a position of pacifism, we as Orthodox Christians aren't pacifists. So we believe that, especially if you're a married man, for example, if somebody breaks into your home, that you have an obligation to defend your children and wife from any potential threat.
I think that falls under nature the same way it would fall under Christianity. In nature, you don't want to hurt no one without cause, and that might
right,
be
but that doesn't mean
subjective, but
violence in and of itself is sinful or wrong.
agreed. Yeah.
Right. So again, what we're getting back to is how because if you establish some rational universal principle, the question is, well, how do you know that, and how is that binding for all people? And even, you know, a strong position that if somebody was a panpsychic, they believed
It's a
in
social
cosmic
contract.
mind, they would be in an epistemic privileged position compared to the atheists that we debated today. Because at least, now I would disagree, and we would have our own arguments against cosmic universal mind or something like that. But if they did appeal to that, at least there's a transcendent entity to establish the philosophical transcendentals in.
I'm not gonna
problem.
All right, this may be rude. I'm not gonna bullshit you, man. You know, I just didn't want to work that hard to fucking understand your point, man. I can do it. I just
let me summarize for him. Let me summarize for him. Are the laws of nature, the way you describe and see nature in the world, is that a descriptive thing? You describe that as a thing happening? It's the world is
in the
this
world
way.
now. In the
Yeah,
world now? No.
No, it just is.
The
You're
laws
describing
exist,
the world.
but everybody's living outside of them. Yeah.
I'm saying that laws are descriptive, and if you're going to abide by a moral law, you have to get outside of nature, because you can't derive oughts from nature itself. Does that make
Right.
sense? You can't just look at nature and go, we ought to do this. This is a fallacy. So if you
Sure
don't want
you
to be
can. I
fallacious,
ought to do this. I don't want to hurt another
you
man.
don't
because-
you don't agree with the is ought problem?
I don't
Great.
agree that it needs to be transcendental. I think that it needs to be. It's not tangible, but that doesn't necessitate it be.
The term moral itself is.
Let me just respond
One
real
at a
quick,
time.
and
Go ahead.
I'll wrap up here. But if you believe in something that's transcendental, you have a problem if you believe in Big Bang cosmology and macroevolutionary theory, because everything is changing. So how can there be non-physical things that are not changing in a meaningless universe that is physically changing? You
Can I answer
can't-
that?
I would agree with that paradigm, and I wouldn't even argue with it, because those don't represent my view.
Well, I'm not saying it does, but I'm saying if it branches off with other things that you said, and I'm not saying this is your full opinion, but if you were to make that position, you see how the transcendental objects of philosophy have to be rooted in something. They have to
They're
have
not
some type
they're not
of
found in
grounding
nature,
that
right?
really exists creation itself.
Well,
So
they are
they
found in nature. They're an
unchanging.
expression
We
of our understanding, right? Like logic is the easiest example. Logic is sort of self-defined, right? No self-contradictions, for instance. It's almost mathematical logical reasoning. If this and not that.
I would say that there's like also ethical theories that are grounded, because what they do is they look at various moral things, and then they say, well, when does this become applicable? And that's the most important thing, is that I personally don't believe like any singular moral philosophy is right or wrong.
Wait, I don't understand. What do you mean there are moral things? That's super ambiguous.
I guess I'm trying to say different moral codes that people can live by. And
you're saying the universality, near universality of how humans code behavior is similar across time? Are you saying something like that?
I thought he was saying it's subjective. I heard something different.
Yeah, so ethics would be like, okay, so we have this moral toolbox, all these different tools we can do. How would we apply them in different scenarios? Because I think that various moral positions can be true around any given subject, depending on what that subject is.
But that sounds like
Subjective.
relativism. Yeah, it sounds like there's nothing. Calling it moral is kind of useless. You should just, if you're going to argue that, there's no use in saying the word moral. Like, you can separate ethics and say ethics is merely what a certain context group of people determine through whatever arbitrary goals is appropriate behavior or not, and you can punish
can't
the
just
inappropriate.
co-opt words, tyrant Bob.
What do you? No. There is
Like
a
a
distinction
social
between
contract.
ethics and morality, for sure.
What is
like
the
morality.
distinction?
Well, the distinction, if there was only ethics, then you could just change all of it. Now, if you're saying there's morality being the purpose of this debate, if morality exists, it would exist. It would be invariant. It wouldn't be based on ethics. Ethics could be informed by morality, but you could have ethics that you just kind of at a whim just determine.
So ethics are variable, and you're still claiming morality is not. But that's the distinction between ethics and morality. I think they're synonymous.
Morality would have
So
to be.
morality would be. So
Can I
this
just
comes
get
into
out of
the
here?
idea of metacognition.
Are you
where
trying to exit,
Yeah.
David?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
let's
was just
allow
gonna say,
David
thanks for
to
hosting
exit.
me in the debate. God bless Jimbob and the family, and
God
God
bless
bless
you.
everybody that has joined and participated in the debate. Appreciate
Thanks,
you all.
DPH. Nice
It's
job.
Do you
nice
want me
meeting you,
to-
bro.
Hey,
you want me
How
DPH.
come Jimbob gets a special
for a
man
second.
named
If
God
you're
Stop.
bless?
seriously interested, tell Sarah where and when. I'll be happy to meet up with you.
All right.
Listen,
We know
you want me-
I-Fi.
Would you shut up? David, would you like me to disconnect your channel on my end? I can leave it up. It's
Are
up
you
to you.
concerned
No,
about
go ahead
I-Fi
and
following you
disconnect
home?
All right. Thank you, guys. God bless.